Chapter 51. As everyone left, Leo followed Netero to a quiet meeting room. Sitting on the mat, Netero stretched out his hand and smiled. "Sit down. Don't be shy." Leo was not polite either, sitting cross-legged on the mat, just staring at Netero. For a moment, the room was silent, and neither of them spoke. Netero looked at Leo for a long time, then he sighed slowly, shook his head, and praised. "I have seen countless young talents in my life, but this is the first time I have seen someone as strange as you." "Oh?" Leo raised the corner of his mouth and asked with a smile. "Then may I ask, President, what is strange about me?" Netero smiled and touched his beard. "There are many strange things. For example, your strength is so great, yet you pretend to be weak in your daily life. Whether it's your mastery of Nen or martial arts, the level of combat power you normally display is far from your actual strength. I've lived for many years, but even I can't control my body and Nen as perfectly as you can. Isn't that strange enough? Although it's common for the strong to disguise themselves as weak, like hiding their aura entirely with N, so that others can't perceive their power, they still can't maintain the act as flawlessly as Leo. Leo acts like a beginner, despite his obvious strength. Maybe others can pretend for a while, but not all the time." In response, Leo just smiled and didn't say anything. His real strength was indeed just like that. If not for his special ability of barehanded immortality, he wouldn't be considered a true master. However, Leo would never tell Netero the real reason. It was his secret and no one else's. Seeing that Leo wasn't going to explain, Netero didn't press him. He took a sip of tea gently, then said, "In addition, your identity is problematic. According to the investigation by our Hunter Association, you appeared in this world out of nowhere a year ago. No records, no social activities, just a blank slate. There's only one kind of person like that." "President, you're suggesting I'm from Meteor Street?" Leo interrupted Netero. Meteor Street, with a land area of about 6,000 square kilometers, was similar in size to the Demon City from his previous life. But its population was only about 8 million, compared to Demon City's 30 million. It was vast and sparsely populated. 1,500 years ago, Meteor Street was already a landfill. Officially, it's a no man's land. Even babies abandoned there aren't given national IDs or recorded physical data. No one knows how its residents live or what kind of education they receive. Its people are all three no individuals, no identity, no registration, no records. You'll never uncover information about someone from Meteor Street." Netero stared at Leo for a few seconds and then shook his head silently. "I don't know, and I don't want to know. For a man as strong as you, digging into your past would be disrespectful. I only tell you this to let you know I've taken care of your identity. From today onward, you'll have a history. You'll be a real person." Leo smiled, sipped his tea, and nodded silently. "Thank you, President. Honestly, I don't care about my past. But it's still good to settle the issue." After all, Leo would eventually marry Mito. His fake identity had worked for a while, but it wouldn't last forever. Now that he had a legal identity issued by the Hunter Association, Mito would surely feel more at ease. In Leo's mind, Mito just needed to live as she always had. Enjoy her days peacefully, taking care of her husband and children. He didn't want to drag Mito into the dangers of the hunter world. That would only make her worry every day that she might lose him. After that, Netero stroked his beard and continued. "All right, now that we've discussed your past, let's get to the point. Leo, why do you want to become a hunter?" Leo touched his chin, thought for a moment, and smiled. "It's simple, because I want to see the world. To be honest, I used to think life was boring. But when I took the hunter exam, I felt the meaning of life. Unknown beasts, hidden treasures, vast mysteries, and powerful foes. I seek the unknown, the thrill. Wherever there's excitement, that's where I want to go. And becoming a hunter is the entry point. Only by becoming a hunter do you earn the basic qualifications to chase the thrill of the unknown. I see, I understand now. Netero squinted and nodded. Just as we suspected, you'll likely become a treasure hunter. That's a good thing. Thank you. I quite like the title of treasure hunter. Ordinary treasure hunters chase material wealth. True treasure hunters seek what humanity hasn't discovered yet. Curiosity, the unknown, the drive to explore, this is what fuels human progress. Understanding Leo's ambition, Netero asked, then among the remaining 9 candidates, who do you most want to fight? Candidate number 301, Illumi Zoldyck. I believe you know who he really is, President. Leo's eyes turned cold, his tone sharp. If the next test is individual combat, I hope you'll arrange for me to face Illumi. He paused, then his tone softened. But I won't trouble you too much, President. I won't kill him. After all, I'm not ready to go to war with the Zoldyck family yet. Well, that makes it hard for me to respond. Netero chuckled awkwardly, then quickly changed the subject. All right, final question. Among the 9 candidates, who do you least want to fight? Definitely Gon. After all, I'm his uncle. I can't beat him up for no reason. Leo laughed. If Gon went back to Whale Island, crying that Leo bullied him, Mito would surely banish Leo from the bed for 3 days. After all, Mito truly raised Gon like her own son. Is that so? All right, I get it. You can leave now. Leo nodded and exited the room. Watching him leave, Netero scratched his bald head with a headache. What a handful. Leo, Illumi. Both of them are trouble. After some thought, Netero still hesitated to pair those two together. If a real fight broke out, it wouldn't just be sparring, it could lead to death or permanent injury. That would be a mess. Shaking his head, Netero pushed the idea aside for now and began calling in the others. Soon, the next person to enter was Illumi. Looking at Illumi's face full of needles, Netero silently complained. How hideous. Not just Leo, even I want to slap him. Despite that thought, Netero smiled and said, Illumi, right? Tell me who you most want to fight, and who you least want to fight. Illumi's expression didn't change at all. His lips didn't even move as he spoke, only a voice came out. If possible, I want to fight number 99, Killua. Number 403, Leo, is the one I least want to face. He paused, then added. I'm not afraid of Leo. But if a real fight breaks out, I'll use every possible tactic. And if civilians get hurt, that won't end well. Good grief, is he threatening me now? Netero silently grumbled and nodded slightly. All right, you can go. As Illumi walked out, Netero grinned. Kid, even if I were your grandfather, you wouldn't dare talk to me like that. Think you're hot stuff, huh? Looks like I'll have to fix that attitude. Thinking this, Netero took out a pen and wrote the names Leo and Illumi on a cardboard sheet, drawing a line to connect them. Chapter 52. Next, Netero called everyone into the room and asked them questions. The questions were very simple, just asking who they wanted to fight and who they didn't want to fight. Although no one knew what the next assessment would be, from Netero's questions, it could be concluded that the next test would probably be a one-on-one duel. The previous assessments all tested the basic qualities of being a hunter. Even if a battle occurred, they could rely on the environment and their companions to win. But the final assessment was obviously a pure contest of raw power. In order to face strong opponents, except for a few people such as Leo, the rest were tense, hoping to get their bodies into combat mode quickly. However, just when everyone thought that the next assessment would begin soon, the Hunter Association's airship flew in the sky for 3 days and 3 nights. Even if it stopped halfway, it was only to refuel, and the next round of assessment never started. This made many examinees' eyes red with frustration, and they all cursed Netero behind his back. They stayed nervous every day to conserve energy, but what was the result? Netero simply didn't start the next round of assessment, intentionally leaving them in suspense. That sense of uncertainty was unbearable. As for Leo, except for Leorio, who was nervous at first, he just relaxed and enjoyed himself. The airship had a lot of space and plenty of entertainment facilities. TV, billiards, poker, and fitness equipment. For 3 days, Leo was never bored. Especially since his own strength was steadily improving, which made him very pleased. Ding tilde. When the airship crossed into the early morning of the 3rd day, precisely at 0 o'clock on January 21, 1999, the pleasant voice of the system rang out again from deep within Leo's soul. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully for a week. The reward is the ultimate move, light speed kick. As the system voice fell, the familiar warmth surged into Leo's body once again. At the same time, the technique for executing the light speed kick was transmitted into Leo's mind. Feeling the changes in his body, Leo checked his character panel. January 21, 1999, Day 22, midnight. Host, Leo. Age, 26. Total psychic energy, 4,558 5,483. Psychic ability nature, special. Psychic abilities. Knights do not die barehanded, 1,000. Shinra Tensei, 500. Getsuga Tensho Bankai, 10,000. Light Speed Kick, 3,000. Light Speed Kick, from One Piece, Admiral Kizaru's ultimate move. Accumulate photons in the calf and kick at the speed of light. Can also emit a laser beam that explodes on impact. The force is powerful enough to destroy a house with ease. Note, while using light speed kick, the host enters a photon state and cannot be physically struck. For every 1,000 extra units of aura spent, the photon state duration extends by 1 second, and power increases by 1/3. After receiving the system's message, Leo opened his eyes, a look of joy flashing in them. Light speed kick. That's a solid ultimate move. Now Leo had Knights do not die barehanded, making his melee equivalent to Grandmaster level. Shinra Tensei allowed for decent ranged attack capability. He had both melee and long-range options in perfect balance. As for Getsuga Tensho Bankai, its power was too overwhelming to use in crowded areas. Once activated, it could easily attract the attention of nations. It was best used only in isolated areas like deep forests and mountain ranges, for now. In short, Leo's current arsenal was enough offensively. But the arrival of light speed kick compensated for his defensive shortcomings. Just now, Leo had confirmed with the system, during the use of light speed kick, no attack could touch him. Even hockey from the One Piece world wouldn't work. This meant that for 5 seconds, Leo's defense would be completely invincible. That's the advantage of the system. It not only provided big moves from other worlds but also uprated and optimized them to eliminate their weaknesses. Of course, even though light speed kick had been optimized, it still had limitations. For example, it couldn't be used while moving. Leo could activate light speed kick while standing still, keeping his body in the photonized state. But once he moved, the photonization of the rest of his body would be disabled, and he would no longer be immune to attacks. To solve this, he needed to sign in again and obtain Kizaru's other ultimate move, light speed movement. Naturally, light speed kick and light speed movement were both photon-based techniques. If Leo could fully analyze the mechanics of light speed kick, maybe one day he could replicate light speed movement without needing to sign in for it. Right now, Leo used these ultimate moves like mathematical formulas. He knew how to apply them and how to manipulate them to get desired outcomes. But he didn't understand how these formulas were derived in the first place. Only by retracing the origin and logically deducing how these techniques were formed could Leo be said to have truly mastered them. This process was bound to be difficult. But at least Leo wasn't starting from zero. If someone asked him to invent ultimate moves out of thin air, he was certain he couldn't do it. But working backward from moves he could already use, that was much easier. After reading the new move's description, Leo turned his attention to his total aura. At dawn on the 18th, Leo's aura level was 4,558. Now, in the early hours of the 21st, it had risen to 5,483. In 3 days, Leo's aura had increased by 925. But in reality, he knew that only about 500 of that increase was from personal growth. The other 400 came from signing in the new move. The system rewarded Leo with 100 points on the first sign-in. Then 200 for the second. 300 for the third. And now, 400 for the fourth. While that may not seem like much, it adds up significantly over time. Leo exhaled softly, his eyes filled with satisfaction. I hope that in the final round of the exam, Netero will let me fight Illumi. When the time comes, I'll definitely give him a kick. With that thought in mind, Leo looked at the alarm clock and planned to take a nap. They had been flying for 3 days. Logically, the final stage of the assessment should begin today. Although Leo wasn't afraid of any challenge, it was still important to replenish his energy. However, bang 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 tilde. 3 knocks sounded at the door. Chapter 53. Bang, bang, bang. Leo looked up after hearing 3 knocks on the door. However, he didn't sense anyone outside the door. Who is it? Leo didn't open the door blindly. There were still several people on this airship capable of using advanced Nen abilities. Especially with Illumi, a top-level assassin, present, Leo was extra cautious. It's me. Menki. Hearing Menki's voice, Leo raised his eyebrows, thought for a moment, and walked over to open the door. As soon as the door opened, Leo was hit by a strong smell of alcohol. Menki stood at the door, her face flushed, her eyes glazed with intoxication and glowing like peach blossoms, exuding a unique charm. Beneath her revealing black fishnet outfit, her graceful figure loomed suggestively, fueling the imagination. Leo silently admired Menki's seductive pose, but outwardly he looked calm and asked coolly. "Do you need something?" Burped Tilda. Menki burped, the alcohol stench proving just how much she'd had. She tilted her head with hazy eyes, staring pitifully at Leo's handsome face. "Leo, can you forgive me? I know I was wrong." Leo didn't quite understand Menki's behavior. He waved a hand to fan the alcohol away from his face. "If you're referring to canceling my qualification during the second phase of the exam, then let me make it very clear, I won't forgive you." With that, Leo was about to close the door. From the bottom of his heart, Leo felt nothing but irritation toward Menki. Though she was undoubtedly beautiful, she was unruly, willful, unreasonable, overly dramatic, and threw tantrums without warning. Maybe some men liked women like that and thought it meant she had personality. Like in most TV dramas, where the female leads behave like that and the male protagonists fall for them like lovesick puppies. But Leo didn't like, and even despised, women like that. To him, the ideal woman was gentle, soft-spoken, affectionate, and caring. And Mito perfectly embodied this image. Just ask, who wouldn't want to come home from an exhausting day to a warm meal and gentle comfort? If the woman is like Menki, moody and selfish, requiring constant coaxing and lashing out whenever she's in a bad mood. What's the point? Maybe some men enjoy being abused, like being scolded and hit. But Leo certainly wasn't one of them. Women are meant to be loved and cherished, yes, that's true. But there's a critical condition, that the woman also loves and cherishes the man. Without that, if the affection is entirely one-sided and the woman takes it for granted, that's just being a simp. With that thought, Leo firmly closed the door. But Menki quickly blocked it with her foot, her eyes red with emotion. Why? Why won't you give me a chance? Leo, I just want you to say one thing. I forgive you. Is that really so much to ask? Menki's voice trembled, sounding like she was on the verge of tears, something she would never do when sober. Menki knew she was too proud to ever apologize to Leo under normal circumstances. So she drank heavily, hoping the alcohol would numb her pride enough to allow an apology. That way, even if she regretted it tomorrow, she could just pretend nothing happened. She could even say it was a dream. 2 birds, 1 stone. Leo stared at her coldly. You want to apologize? Fine. The final stage of the Hunter exam will begin soon. Assuming nothing changes, all of you examiners will be allowed to watch. If you apologize to me publicly, in front of everyone, I'll consider forgiving you. He paused, his eyes growing colder. And another thing, your attempt at a drunken apology utterly disgusts me. Who are you trying to impress? If I forgive you tonight, will you say tomorrow that you drank too much and forgot all about it? You have no sincerity, and yet you shamelessly ask me for forgiveness? Do you think just because you're pretty, all men should orbit around you and shower you with affection? Humph. Leo snorted coldly, pried her foot away, and slammed the door shut. Staring at the closed door, Menki stood there stunned for a long time. Hissed Tilda. Suddenly, she drew in a sharp breath, her beautiful face twisting in anger, her entire body trembling. Leo. You actually dare treat me like this? Menki manifested 2 kitchen knives in her hands and raised them high, ready to chop the door down. But reason stopped her at the last second. Though she had drunk a lot and seemed drunk, Menki was actually quite sober. As an elite hunter, maintaining a clear mind at all times was one of the most basic requirements. She would never allow herself to get completely wasted. Menki knew perfectly well that her conflict with Leo wasn't irreparable. If she sincerely apologized, things could be resolved easily. But if she went through with it, if she struck the door with her knife, then she and Leo would be enemies for life. She remembered what Leo did on the uninhabited island, flattening an entire forest with 3 strikes. That thought alone was enough to make Menki lower her blades. She snorted coldly and muttered with stubborn defiance. I will never admit I was wrong to you, absolutely not. With that, she stomped away, glancing back with every step, hoping Leo might come after her. But by the time she rounded the corner, Leo still hadn't opened the door. This made Menki's chest rise and fall rapidly with anger. As soon as she returned to her room, she pounced on the hanging sandbag with fists and feet. Damn you, Leo. You jerk. You big bully. Stupid Leo, you go to hell. After pummeling the sandbag into submission, Menki collapsed onto her bed, utterly exhausted, staring up at the ceiling with dazed eyes. Leo tilde you big meanie. In Leo's room, after driving Menki away, he simply went back to sleep. A girl who's merely pretty but has a terrible personality wasn't worth his time or thought. Early the next morning, when the airship landed on the roof of a hotel, the most anticipated announcement finally came from within. Dear examinees, we've arrived at the location for the final stage of the Hunter exam. Please follow the chairman and other proctors to the test site. Everyone's eyes lit up at the announcement. Beside Leo, Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and Killua were all geared up. Leo glanced at their excited faces and smiled gently. The next round is likely a one-on-one match to test real combat power. And we might be opponents. When the time comes, don't expect me to hold back. Hearing this, everyone exchanged smiles and nodded in unison. Don't worry. We won't hold back either. After disembarking from the airship, everyone followed Netero and the examiners up several flights of stairs until they reached a large, empty hall. The hall was spacious, about 20 meters wide, 50 meters long, and over 10 meters high. Netero had someone bring out a blackboard covered with white cloth. He stroked his beard and addressed the group. All right, I won't waste any more words. The fifth and final test of the Hunter exam officially begins now. And I'm sure you've already guessed it. That's right, it's a one-on-one challenge. Everyone looked calmly at Netero. Without stalling, Netero pulled off the cloth to reveal the matchups. Immediately, a chart appeared. When Leo saw the names, his eyes lit up, and he turned to look at Illumi. But Illumi turned his head away, staring instead at Netero. Feeling Illumi's cold stare, Netero grinned and chuckled gleefully. That's the thing he loved most, watching people suffer. Chapter 54. A total of 10 numbers appeared on the blackboard. Above these 10 numbers, a pyramid-shaped structure was drawn from bottom to top, with adjacent numbers connected to each other. For example, the first one was Leo's number 403, and the second was Illumi's number 301, and their numbers were connected. The third was Kilowa's number 99, and the fourth was Bakur's number 53. The fifth was Gon's number 404, and the sixth was Hanzo's number 294. The seventh was Leorio's number 406, and the eighth was Jaretta's number 384. The ninth was Kurapika's number 405, and the 10th was Pence's number 246. Did you see clearly? This round of the competition is a one-on-one duel. The winner will pass directly and become a hunter, while the loser will enter the next round to duel with another loser. This continues until one person has never won a single match. Netero pointed to the top of the pyramid and looked at everyone with a smile. In other words, only one of you 10 will be eliminated. How about it? Not bad. In past years, the pass rate of the Hunter exam was only 1 every few years. Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Only 1 out of 10 would fail, and the other 9 would become official hunters? This was almost too good to be true. It was a pity they had been so anxious before, thinking only 2 or 3 would make it. A 9 out of 10 pass rate. That was practically a gift. Looking at Netero's chart, Leo smiled and nodded in approval. I think this setup is excellent. No problem at all. But at this point, Leo turned and looked at Illumi, whose face was full of needles, his eyes flashing dangerously. If I kill my opponent, then no one in my bracket moves to the next round, right? Upon hearing this, Illumi couldn't help but look at Leo. He could feel the hostility radiating from Leo. It gave Illumi a headache. Good point. Netero nodded. So, in this final test, no matter what weapons or techniques you use, you cannot kill your opponent. You must force your opponent to surrender. Only when your opponent says the word surrender does the duel end, otherwise, it must continue. Even if it lasts 3 days and 3 nights, it goes on. But if you kill your opponent, you will be immediately eliminated. Everyone else will pass and become official hunters. Understand? Any questions? No one spoke, not even Gon, whose brain usually didn't process quickly. This promotion system was straightforward. Just win 1 fight and you're through. No need to overthink, everyone understood. Seeing no objections, Netero looked at Leo and Illumi. Then let's begin the first round. Number 403 Leo, number 301 Illumi, step forward. Everyone else, step back. In an instant, everyone except Leo and Illumi moved to the edge of the room. They glanced from Leo to Illumi, whose face was covered in needles, and couldn't help but feel sympathy. Leorio crossed his arms behind his head and chuckled. That guy's luck is terrible. Facing Leo right away. Everyone here knows Leo is the strongest among us. Kurapika nodded silently. Yes, in terms of power, Leo really is unmatched. But he stared at Illumi intently. He could feel that this needle-covered man was very dangerous. Gon raised his arms and cheered, "Come on, Leo." He was the most enthusiastic supporter. Only Menki leaned against the wall, glaring at Leo with burning eyes, muttering, "Stupid Leo, lose already. I'd be happiest if you lost." On the battlefield, Leo's smile vanished. He gazed sharply at Illumi. He pulled a folded letter from his pocket, a message Hisoka had sent him when he fled the island. "This letter? You sent it?" Leo tossed the letter, and it flew toward Illumi like a steel dart. But Illumi casually caught it between his index and middle fingers. He pinched it slightly, and the tough letter crumbled into dust, drifting to the floor. "I couldn't help it. Hisoka paid me 100 million to deliver a letter. I wasn't fighting you. I just delivered it for 100 million. Why not?" Illumi smiled at Leo, but with his face full of needles, the smile looked disturbing. At the same time, he raised his right hand, his smile widening grotesquely. "Also, Leo, I won't fight you. You beat Hisoka, and I consider myself about equal to him. Since I can't beat you, I might as well." Seeing Illumi's smug, sinister grin, Leo knew he had to stop him. He couldn't let him utter the word surrender. Leo's right leg began to glow. Before anyone could react, he launched a fierce kick at Illumi. Piaotia. A blinding laser shot from Leo's leg. It moved at the speed of light. Even though Illumi sensed the danger and dodged the moment Leo lifted his leg. To evade a light-speed attack, you need either observation hockey to predict the strike or N to track your opponent's every move. No human reflex alone could perfectly counter such a blazing fast strike. Boom tilde. The hotel shook violently. Chunks of debris blasted in all directions. Dust filled the air. Aside from faint outlines, nothing was visible. Outside the ring, chaos erupted. Even experienced hunters like Menki looked stunned, unsure what to do. They understood the situation more clearly than people like Gon, who couldn't use Nen yet. What was that attack? A Nen bullet? Impossible. No way a Nen bullet could be that fast or that strong. Even with restrictions and vows, it wouldn't reach that level. Did Illumi die? When the dust finally settled, the crowd gasped. Sunlight streamed through a giant hole in the hotel wall directly behind Leo. Rubble was everywhere. Everything in the path of the attack had been obliterated. Gulp tilde. Everyone swallowed hard, staring at Leo in disbelief. They knew he was strong, but not like this. With one move, he had blown out a building wall as if it were nothing. Was he even human? Was this power even possible for a human? Netero stood calmly, unmoved, like an ancient tree. He gently stroked his beard and silently admired Leo. What incredible speed and precision! If he launched that move at me, even I couldn't dodge it. Netero recognized that the true strength of Leo's attack lay in its speed. Once Leo activated the light speed kick, no one could evade it. This was similar to Netero's 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva, both relied on overwhelming speed. But both Leo and Netero understood that if light speed kick went up against the 100 type Guanyin, Leo would lose. Why? Because Netero's Guanyin attacks were nearly instantaneous. The seemingly elaborate setup was actually executed at the absolute limit of human capability, beyond ordinary comprehension. Meanwhile, Leo's light speed kick, though faster than Guanyin in raw speed, required him to first raise his leg. In the time it took to lift that leg, Netero could land dozens of strikes. To use light speed kick against Netero, Leo would need to launch it from several hundred meters away. But from that far, Netero would find it much easier to dodge. Back on the battlefield. Tick-T. Chapter 55. Hearing the voice, everyone looked up at the ceiling. When Killua saw the figure on the ceiling, his pupils widened, and his body began to tremble uncontrollably. Brother! Brother! At this moment, Illumi had completely dropped his disguise. His figure clung to the ceiling like a spider, firmly anchored to the wall above. It was almost unimaginable that a human could leap more than 10 meters into the air in an instant, and stick to the ceiling as if defying gravity. Blood dripped from Illumi's limp, naturally hanging left arm. A crescent-shaped hole had been blown through it. Burn marks spread around the wound, and blood continued to seep from the injury. Clearly, Illumi had done everything he could to dodge Leo's light-speed kick. Even his appearance had reverted to its original form. Obviously, this was Illumi going all out to perfectly evade Leo's devastating attack. Looking at his bleeding arm, Illumi's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was shaken. What terrifying power! Just grazing the edge of that attack cut open my arm. If I hadn't reacted instantly the moment Leo moved, that strike would have killed me effortlessly. From now on, if I ever have to face Leo in a head-on confrontation, I must always maintain a fully active N. Thinking this, Illumi turned to Netero and shouted, "I surrender." After declaring his loss, Illumi jumped down from the ceiling, calmly looking at Leo and speaking softly. "Was that attack just now meant to kill me?" Leo smiled and shrugged. "Of course not. It was just a little greeting." "But..." At this point, Leo's eyes gleamed with amusement. "If you can't even handle a greeting, then die. Worst case, I'll retake the exam next year." This guy really was trying to kill me. Illumi realized. He frowned internally. Being targeted by a monster like Leo was a serious problem, even for the Zoldyck family. Thinking quickly, Illumi said seriously, "I'll help you assassinate Hisoka once. As payment, let's call off the grudge between us. What do you say?" Seeing his brother Illumi actually admit defeat to Leo, Killua felt a strange sense of satisfaction. All these years, Killua had never seen his brother lose, let alone admit defeat. In his eyes, Illumi had always been invincible. Now that illusion was shattered. So even Illumi can lose. Right then, a rebellious seed took root between Killua's brows. Hearing Illumi's offer, Leo laughed coldly. He stared indifferently at Illumi's handsome, expressionless face. "If you hadn't saved Hisoka, he would have died by my sword already, and there'd be no need for an assassination. And now you want peace. Not impossible." Illumi's eyes lit up. Though he kept his usual stoic look, it was clear to anyone watching that he was pleased. "Go home and tell your family. Someday I'll climb Kukuru Mountain myself and pay the Zoldyck estate a visit. Then we'll discuss reconciliation and compensation, in person." Hearing this, Illumi's face turned cold, and his tone frosted over. "So there's no room to negotiate after all. Very well. We, the Zoldyck family, await your arrival." With that, Illumi retreated into the crowd. But he didn't speak to Killua. Right now, Killua was under Leo's protection. If Illumi picked a fight with Killua, Leo might use it as an excuse to attack again. It wasn't worth the risk. Seeing Illumi leave, Leo turned to Netero and didn't bother chasing him down. After all, Illumi had surrendered. If Leo continued, it would be a direct insult to Netero. "Chairman, does that mean I win?" Netero stroked his beard and chuckled. "Yes, you win. From this moment, you are an official member of the Hunter Association. However, your license will come later. For now, just stay and observe." Leo nodded with a smile and returned to join Gon and the others. "Wow. Leo, you're amazing." As soon as he came off stage, Gon's eyes were starry with admiration. He eagerly grabbed Leo's arm and shouted, "Can you teach me that move? I want to learn it too." Killua, Kurapika, and Leorio also stared at Leo with eager eyes. The ability to fire a laser with a kick and blow a hole in a building wall was insanely cool. Who wouldn't want to learn a move that awesome? Even the other examinees who hadn't learned Nen yet stared at Leo with sparkling eyes, hoping he might reveal his secret. Leo just smiled and said nothing, but Netero stepped in to speak first. "You can't learn Leo's technique. If anyone could learn it, the world would have been thrown into chaos ages ago. However, once you become hunters, you'll have the chance to learn similar abilities. You've likely noticed by now, humans can learn supernatural powers. And once you're hunters, you'll have that opportunity. It's one of the hidden benefits of becoming a hunter." Clearly, because Leo had demonstrated Nen abilities in front of everyone, Netero chose this moment to explain the basics. Besides, since only one person would be eliminated in this final round, the other 9 would soon learn Nen anyway. No harm in introducing the concept early. When they heard they could gain superpowers like Leo's after passing the exam, the remaining testers were ignited with determination. Anyone who had considered giving up and waiting for the next round now clung tightly to their will to fight. Netero squinted, nodding with a pleased smile. "Yes, that's more like it. Let's make the next matches even more exciting. I love watching young people compete for strength and glory." Soon, the second match began. Killua stepped out with confidence. At the same time, Bakura entered, tightly gripping his bow and arrow. Netero looked at Killua and Bakura and sighed slightly to himself. Looks like another one-sided match. Last time, the Zoldyck family was crushed. This time, the Zoldyck family will dominate. Hey hunters! Short mandatory cult break. Followed up by the fun fact. Did you know, Krolo's original name was Kuroro Lucifer? They changed the romanization officially later to Krolo Lucifer. Okay. Let's keep going. Chapter 56. On the court. Killua put his hands in his trouser pockets, looked at Bakura across from him, and smiled. "Hey. I advise you to admit defeat now. I have to win this match." As he spoke, Killua glanced at Illumi, who was leaning against the wall, silently tending to his wounds. He knew that if he lost this round, then in the next match, he'd have to face his brother, Illumi. And that was something Killua absolutely didn't want. He knew very well that, although Illumi was seriously injured and his left arm was completely useless, to defeat Killua, Illumi only needed to lift a finger. Most importantly, Killua knew he could never defy Illumi. Every time he tried, overwhelming fear would rise from the depths of his soul. He never wanted to feel that fear again. Bakura snorted, raised his bow, nocked an arrow, and pointed it at Killua. "How shameless! The only one winning today is me. Swish tilde." As Bakura released the string, the arrow cut through the air and reached Killua in an instant. But Killua didn't even flinch, he casually caught the arrow with one hand. Sniffing the arrowhead lightly, Killua's eyes lit up with interest. "Poisoned. You're pretty underhanded." Seeing Killua catch his arrow so easily, Bakura's heart sank. He already knew his opponent was strong, now he realized just how strong. As Bakura was about to fire again, Killua suddenly vanished and reappeared behind him. His right hand turned into a blade-like chop, striking the back of Bakura's neck. Whoosh tilde. For a moment, Bakura didn't even feel pain before collapsing to the ground. Looking at Bakura lying there, Killua kept one hand in his pocket and sighed with boredom. "I thought I left the assassin life behind. But it seems I'm back to my old job after all." Killua squatted down, grabbed Bakura by the hair, and applied a bit of pressure, enough to wake him with pain. Ignoring Bakura's groans, Killua smiled brightly. "That was just a soft hit. You're only paralyzed. I know you're still conscious, barely able to speak. So now, I'll let you experience some of the torture techniques used in my family. At that moment, Killua paused and added, "Oh, right. You probably don't know my full name yet. It's Killua Zoldyck. That's my whole name. Now, I'll ask one last time, do you surrender? If not, I'll begin." At first, Bakura planned to endure it. After all, if he could withstand the pain without admitting defeat, he wouldn't lose. He figured Killua was just a kid, even if stronger, he couldn't possibly know how to torture someone. But when he heard the name Zoldyck, Bakura's eyes trembled. The Zoldyck family, the world's #1 assassin clan. Even ordinary people could find terrifying details about them online. Realizing Killua came from that family, with who knows how many methods of torture at his disposal, Bakura finally broke. "I surrender. I surrender." Seeing how fast Bakura gave up, Killua muttered in disappointment. "Tch. So spineless. I thought I'd have to crush your fingers one by one before you gave up. How boring." Bakura swallowed nervously, silently thankful for his decision. After leaving the field, Killua looked at his brother Illumi, hesitated, then turned away. He knew that if he walked over, he might never come back. When Killua returned, Gon raised his hands excitedly and clapped his palms against Killua's with a cheerful "Yeah. Congrats. Killua, you passed." Looking at Gon's joyful face, Killua buried his worry and smiled back. "Thanks, Gon. But now it's your turn. Be careful. That bald guy is strong." At that moment, the bald ninja Hanzo didn't step onto the field. Instead, he walked up to Leo. Though he knew how powerful Leo was, he showed no fear. "Leo, who is this Gon to you?" Hearing the question, Leo smiled. "I guess you could say I'm his uncle." Hanzo nodded without surprise and then asked, "Final question, if I cripple him, will you come after me?" Before Leo could respond, Gon shouted from the side. "No." Gon stared intently at Hanzo, his expression deadly serious. "This is a match between us. I won't let anyone interfere." He turned to Leo, his voice deep and firm. "Leo, I know Aunt Mito asked you to protect me. But I've grown up. I can take care of myself now. So please, don't get involved. No matter what happens in this fight, I don't want you retaliating." He paused, then looked at Hanzo and asked awkwardly, "What's your name?" "Hanzo." Gon nodded and turned back to Leo. "Right, Hanzo. I won't allow you to take revenge on him. If you do, no matter how injured Hanzo is, I'll hurt myself the same way. If Hanzo loses his arms or legs, I'll cut off mine. If Hanzo dies, then I..." He hesitated, then continued. "Then I'll never go back to Whale Island. I'll wander like my father. I bet Aunt Mito will hate you forever." Everyone stared speechlessly at Gon. Good grief, after all these years, this was the first time anyone had ever seen a threat like that. In movies, threats were about killing your family or chopping someone up. But Gon, he threatened to mutilate himself. Was that even a threat? Looking at Gon's serious face, Leo knew he meant it. Once Gon made up his mind, no matter how ridiculous, he wouldn't change it. With a sigh, Leo gave a helpless expression. "All right. It's your decision, I won't interfere." Gon's eyes lit up, a big smile appearing on his face. "But after this exam, I'm telling Mito everything. You can explain it to her yourself." "Wah, no. You can't tell Aunt Mito." Gon panicked, forcing out some tears and looking pitifully at Leo. But Leo ignored him and turned to Netero. "Chairman, shall we begin?" Netero smiled and stroked his beard. "No rush, no rush. I love watching this kind of family drama. Ho tilde quite entertaining." Meanwhile, Hanzo let out a sigh of relief. He looked at Leo and nodded. "I hope you'll keep your word." Then Hanzo stepped to the center of the arena. Gon wiped his eyes and followed. Facing the determined Gon, Hanzo sighed. Gon, surrender. I really don't want to hurt you. But Gon just snorted and dashed to Hanzo's right. It looked like he wanted to circle around. In an instant, Hanzo appeared beside him and said with a cold face. Confident in your speed, are you? Think I can't catch up? Let's make a deal, race me. If I'm faster, you surrender. Deal? Gon kept running and made a silly face. I refuse. I'm not giving up no matter what. Is that so? Hanzo now understood Gon's mindset and gave up trying to persuade him. With a wave of his hand, Gon stumbled forward and crashed to the ground, rolling several times. Hanzo began to methodically torment Gon. Perhaps afraid of Leo, he didn't cripple him right away, but gradually increased the pain. From skin, to flesh, to tendons, to bones. Each time, Hanzo asked if he surrendered. But Gon was like stubborn gum, you couldn't get rid of him. No matter what, he wouldn't yield. Watching the brutal scene, Leo remained silent. Killua clenched his fists, Kurapika ground his teeth. Only Leorio screamed hoarsely. Damn it! You bald bastard! Fight me instead! What kind of man tortures a kid? Then he turned to Leo and shouted. Leo, are you really not going to stop this? He's about to die. Just say the word, Hanzo would back down immediately. Watching Gon, bloodied and barely breathing, Leo exhaled. This is Gon's choice. I won't interfere. Look at his eyes. There's no fear. No retreat. That kind of indomitable will. No one has the right to insult it. Chapter 57. Leorio looked into Gon's eyes. At this time, Gon was nearly unconscious from the torture, but he had been awakened again by Hanzo. Even after regaining consciousness, Gon showed no trace of fear. On the contrary, his eyes were locked onto Hanzo, not with hatred, but with pure defiance. Seeing those eyes, Leorio gritted his teeth and finally fell silent. Though they pitied Gon's battered state, since Gon himself refused to give up, how could they, as friends, tell him to surrender? Now you understand. Leo took a deep breath and said slowly. As long as Gon doesn't give up, I won't interfere with his choice. If I stepped in, it wouldn't help him, it would only hurt him. If you want to be someone who stands tall and proud, this kind of unyielding spirit is essential. Everyone stopped speaking. They just clenched their jaws and watched the inhumane torture on the field in silence. 3 hours into the match between Gon and Hanzo. Looking at Gon, covered in blood and scars, struggling to rise from the ground. And seeing his clear, unwavering gaze staring directly at him. Hanzo closed his eyes, took several deep breaths, and looked away. Are you really not going to surrender? Hearing this, Gon grimaced in pain but shouted resolutely. Of course not. I'll never, ever surrender. Even though I can't beat you, this match is about who gives up first. So I'm telling you, even if I die, I won't surrender. I'm going to win this match. Staring into Gon's pure, determined eyes, Hanzo silently pulled out the hidden blade from his arm. With a flash, the blade stabbed into Gon's shoulder. Blood began to pour from the wound. Now, with just a bit of pressure, your arm will be severed. Do you know what that means? With one arm gone, you'll be crippled for life. I could cut off your arms and legs, and you'd be stuck in bed for the rest of your life. Even then, you still wouldn't surrender? Gon's eyes didn't flinch in the slightest. Instead, he stepped forward, letting the blade sink even deeper. I once swore I'd find my father. I want to ask him face to face, what makes being a hunter so worth it? Why would you choose that job over coming home for more than 10 years? I want that answer, and I have to become a hunter to get it. For that, I won't back down. Not even if it kills me. Hanzo stared into Gon's eyes and saw a willpower stronger than death. That will wasn't borrowed from Leo. Even if Leo weren't here, if no one had his back, Gon would still face death with no fear. Who tilde? With a light exhale, Hanzo withdrew the blade from Gon's shoulder, raised his hand, and said helplessly, "All right. You win. I surrender." At that, everyone's faces lit up with joy. They were about to cheer when Gon shouted, dissatisfied, "Wait. I don't accept your surrender. Hanzo, do you think just because Leo is my uncle, you're giving up on purpose? Let me tell you, this is a fight between you and me. It has nothing to do with Leo. I won't accept your random surrender like this." Hanzo gave him a look that said, "I knew you'd say that," and shrugged. "Relax, I genuinely respect you. Not many people can endure 3 hours of my torture and still refuse to quit. I swear, my surrender has nothing to do with Leo. I promise on my honor." Gon didn't look convinced and responded seriously, "No," loudly. "I don't care. You still can't just surrender like that." That immediately made Hanzo snap. He jabbed a finger at Gon's forehead, spraying spit as he shouted, "You little brat, don't push it. What do you mean I can't surrender? Are you saying you want to beat me to a pulp and torture me like I did to you? Until I'm the one broken and begging to surrender? Is that what you mean?" Gon blinked, scratched his cheek with one hand, and laughed. "No, it doesn't have to be that bad. Just a little lighter is fine," hissed Tilda. The onlookers collectively sucked in their breath. They all stared at Gon in disbelief. What the heck? So the supposedly pure and innocent Gon had such a wicked side? You think I'm stupid? Hanzo exploded with fury, veins bulging. He uppercut Gon in the chin, sending him flying several meters before he crashed back down. Ignoring him, Hanzo stomped his feet in frustration and turned to Netero. "Chairman, I surrender this match. Seriously, I'm so pissed off. I was the one torturing him, but somehow, I'm the one who ends up angry?" Everyone burst out laughing at Hanzo's rant. Even Leo couldn't help smiling. This had been an intense, brutal battle, filled with blood and screams. But in the end, Gon's stubborn antics made everyone laugh. Maybe it was Gon's untainted spirit that made it all feel so refreshing. The older people got, the more they understood how dark the world could be, and how deep they were trapped in it. But every time they saw a child as pure as a blank slate, they felt their own hearts purified. Only Killua and Illumi didn't laugh. They'd been raised in darkness. Killing had been their education. They had never seen the light, so they couldn't recognize it, let alone treasure it. Killua, confused, looked around the room. To him, Gon was just a willful kid. What was so funny about that? At that moment, Leo walked up quietly and whispered, "Don't get it, huh? Why we're laughing?" Killua nodded silently. "Then, if you ever get the chance, go travel with Gon. You'll understand eventually. Of course, only if you want to." Killua stayed silent, uncertain. Travel? With Gon? Could he? Would his family allow it? Leo didn't push him. With how far the story had diverged from the original, even he didn't know if Gon would still travel with Killua. After cooling off, Hanzo turned to Netero. "Chairman, you know how stubborn Gon is. Even 10 horses couldn't hold him back. Don't make me fight him again. It's too painful. I mean, I was the one tortured here." Netero squinted and chuckled. "Don't worry. You surrendered, so Gon passes. Even if he won't admit it, that won't change the result." "Good." Hanzo nodded and walked over to Leo. He stood before him and said seriously, "Leo, I didn't surrender to Gon because I was afraid of you." Leo smiled and nodded. "I know." Hanzo said nothing more and silently stepped aside. Chapter 58. As Hanzo admitted defeat and left the court, Gon, who had been knocked unconscious by Hanzo's punch, was carried to a hotel room by staff. In truth, Gon's resistance to pain made it hard for Hanzo to knock him out with a single blow. Without the 3 hours of torture, Hanzo would have needed 2 or 3 strikes at least, given Gon's tenacious vitality, truly cockroach-like. Soon, the fourth match began. It pitted Leorio, no. 406, against Jureta, no. 384. As soon as both big men entered the arena, they clashed immediately, no hesitation. But it didn't take long for Leorio to be overwhelmed. In pure strength, Jureta didn't quite crush Leorio, but the gap was obvious. After all, in the original story, this black man had been able to tail Gon for long periods undetected, proof of his strength. Sadly, in the original story he later faced Hisoka and lost. But now, since Hisoka was defeated by Leo, he survived. Before long, Jureta knocked Leorio down repeatedly. However, like Gon, Leorio refused to admit defeat. Realizing this, Jureta grew bored of overpowering him and instead produced a poisoned weapon. In an instant, Leorio was afflicted by poison. Though Leorio cried foul, no one defended him. Netero had clearly stated before the match that all weapons and methods, except murder, were allowed, even poison. What followed were inhumane tortures. Despite his resolve, Leorio chose surrender when Jureta threatened to cripple him. Not everyone is like Gon, who would die before yielding. Most fear death or disability, and that's understandable. You have to live to chase your dreams. I lost. Leorio was carried out on a stretcher, but luckier than Gon, he didn't faint. He looked to Kurapika, who came to comfort him, and with quick sobs vowed, "I'll win the next one. I believe in you, Leorio, we'll become hunters together," Kurapika said. Trying to smile, Leorio closed his eyes as staff carried him away. Soon, the next match began, Kurapika, no. 405, versus Ponzu, no. 246. To be honest, this match was not entertaining. Kurapika is kind and gentle at heart. Even when capturing Uvogin of the Phantom Troop, he didn't torture him, just punched a few times. In this fight, after freeing Ponzu's bees, he knocked her down and punched her stomach every minute, hardly lethal. His attacks were controlled to cause pain but no lasting harm. Cold and calm, Kurapika watched Ponzu on the ground. The others, Leo included, were bored, wanting sleep. Even Netero, seated on the ground, sighed inwardly. Did I misjudge? This match is too dull, I shouldn't have paired them. In fairness, Ponzu was the only woman left, and Kurapika polite, so maybe Netero meant well. But Kurapika's restraint was surprising. Each punch forced a groan, yet he showed no cruelty. He spoke softly. You're right, I don't intend to torture someone with no quarrel. But I have to become a hunter, and this is necessary. He punched again, then asked, have you heard of water dripping through stone? A chill passed over Ponzu as she replied, what do you mean? All these small hits, they hurt now, but over time, they break inner strength. You're not stone, and I'm not water, but how many times will I need to hit you before internal damage breaks you? With each strike, his voice remained calm and emotionless. Sooner or later, your body will collapse from the inside, even if the skin shows no damage. This is the kindest way I can force you to surrender. I won't torture you into a bloody mess. Shaking, Ponzu broke down and begged, yet this was a test. For Kurapika, it was a test of ruthlessness, toughening himself for the Phantom Troop. Finally, Ponzu surrendered. Thank you, Kurapika sighed, bowing slightly in apology. I had to win to become a hunter. He left without waiting for a response, a mix of excitement and guilt swirling within him. Indeed, in Kurapika's heart, the act was inhumane. But to Leo and others, Kurapika seemed gentle still. If Leo had faced Ponzu, he'd make her scream, but not this quiet, bloodless scream. Chapter 59. After the 5 matches, it was already noon. However, Netero clearly had no intention of giving everyone a lunch break. As soon as the bout between Kurapika and Ponzu ended, the next match began immediately. There was no time to rest. From this match on, the hunter test would be over. In this round, Illumi faced Jaretta. Obviously, Jaretta lacked self-awareness. Though he knew Illumi was formidable, he still thought he had a chance. Maybe Leo's earlier attack gave him false courage. After all, Illumi had been seriously injured by Leo. So Jaretta's confidence was overinflated. He didn't back down at first. He raised his bow and knocked an arrow at Illumi. But tragedy ensued. Illumi showed no mercy. Within a heartbeat, he launched several long needles that pierced Jaretta's head at a speed Jaretta couldn't evade. In an instant, Jaretta's face contorted. His head was horribly deformed, grotesque beyond belief. Illumi stared coldly and whispered, "Do you surrender?" Jaretta, utterly broken by the needles, replied in a stutter. I surrender." He collapsed to the ground. Even after Illumi withdrew the needles, Jaretta's skull remained horrifically disfigured. He lay there drooling and gibbering. "I surrender. I surrender." The gathered spectators trembled in horror, staring at Illumi in dread. Clearly, Jaretta was beyond saving, an empty shell. Illumi scanned the crowd, paused on Leo for a moment, then looked to Netero, and said quietly, "No need for more matches. This one won't do anything except repeat 'I surrender.' Let's end this farce. I don't want to stay." He folded his arms and stepped aside. Silence fell. Fear gripped the room, not just of cruelty, but the dread of Illumi's power. Those like Leo and Netero had nothing to comment. What could be said? Accusing Illumi of rule-breaking? Too cruel? Netero's rules had stated clearly, anything goes except murder. Disability was a known risk. As long as someone survives, it's fair game. So the following matches followed Illumi's declaration. Almost nobody fought, they surrendered one by one. Before Hanzo and Leorio could even enter, Leorio stepped back. Then Ponzu conceded. Then Ponzu against now demented Jaretta, and Jaretta surrendered instantly. In that instant, this final round ended hastily. No one expected it. Apart from Jaretta, everyone passed and became real hunters. The joy of victory quickly dispelled the creeping dread Illumi had brought. Jaretta wasn't their friend or family, pity faded fast. Life goes on, don't dwell too long on someone else's suffering. And Ponzu and Jaretta in the original story had no special bond, they just happened to team up on the island. Their numbers, 384 and 246, aren't even close. They were strangers, and no one expected Ponzu to grieve for him. After the matches, Netero addressed the group with a grin. "First, congratulations on passing the hunter test. But you're not hunters yet. You must receive your official license from the Hunter Association. They've been prepared and should arrive tomorrow. Please stay at this hotel tonight. Tomorrow at noon, attend a briefing on being a hunter. Once you do, you get your license, and you'll truly be hunters. Now, you're dismissed." At the news that they'd become hunters tomorrow, Leorio, Hanzo, and the rest erupted with cheers. "Yeah. Finally a hunter. Kurapika, Leo, you should be happy too, stop pretending to be so stoic." Leo and Kurapika merely smiled at the exuberant Leorio, they were calm by nature. Introverted, they showed emotion only around trusted friends, not in crowds. Killua didn't react overtly. Raised to hide emotion, killers don't need outward feelings. As the crowd celebrated, Illumi approached Leo. He came before him, glanced at Killua behind Leo, then met Leo's eyes and whispered, "May I say something to Killua?" Leo raised an eyebrow, lifted his palm, and nodded gently. "Go ahead. This is family business." "Thank you." Illumi turned and walked toward Killua, who shivered, sweat running down his face as Illumi loomed over him. Chapter 60 Killua, have you had enough fun? If so, come back home with me. Mom misses you so much she cries every day. Killua swallowed hard and let out a nervous chuckle. It's normal for her to cry. After all, I disfigured her when I left. At this, the onlookers blinked in shock, staring at Killua in disbelief. Leorio muttered inwardly. Seriously, Killua? That kid deserves a beating, he actually disfigured his own mother. What an unfilial son. Everyone around nodded in stunned agreement. Illumi continued calmly. Even so, Mom is very happy. She said you've become an excellent assassin, she no longer hesitates to attack her. She also said you're destined to be the strongest assassin in Zoldyck history. And I agree with her. Killua clenched his teeth, lowered his head, and replied in a low voice. I don't want to be an assassin. I'm tired of killing. Illumi's pupil darkened, and a chilling aura radiated from him, making Killua tremble again. Don't joke with me, Killua. You were born a killer. Since childhood, we trained you to be a weapon, no desires, hiding by day, killing by night, your only joy coming from taking lives. No. I'm not like that. I don't enjoy killing. I never have. He raised his head, voice trembling but firm. I want to be friends with Gon. These past days with Gon, I've felt happiness I never knew. Talking, eating, laughing. I like this simple, free life. I really don't want to be a killer anymore. Ah, really? But in my eyes, you just want to get close to Gon, only so you can kill him when he trusts you. Killing under disguise, gaining trust, that's assassin training. No, that's not. Killua faltered, his confidence wavering. Every retort felt useless, Illumi twisted every word back to killing. Just as Killua was losing hope, Leo stepped forward, pressing his palm gently on Killua's head. Leo's presence washed over Killua. Where Illumi's aura shook him, Leo's comforted him, his unease melted away. Illumi frowned. Leo, do you intend to meddle in Zoldyck family matters? Leo smiled, stroked Killua's messy silver hair, and said softly. No, I'm not interfering. Whether Killua stays or leaves, that's up to him. But Gon is my nephew, and Killua's friend. If you insist on taking Killua home, at least allow him a proper goodbye with Gon. Is that so? Illumi fell silent, then nodded. Fine. For your sake, Killua may say goodbye to Gon, but he won't return with me. Either way, the outcome won't change. With that, Illumi turned to leave. Before stepping out, he paused, glancing back at Leo with a smile. By the way, Leo. The Zoldycks welcome your visit. When the time comes, I hope you keep your composure. Watching Illumi walk away, Leo chuckled and patted Killua's head. The Zoldyck family. That day won't be far off. Killua crouched down, rested his head against Leo's hand, and whispered. Thank you. Leo smiled warmly. No problem, just making things easier. Besides, I don't like your brother either, his self-righteous air. Killua laughed softly, eyes downcast. Yes. He is self-righteous. Once he decides something, he never tolerates disagreement. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. When Gon wakes up, I'll say goodbye. Then I'll go home and ask Dad to let me leave. Once Dad orders it, even Illumi can't refuse. He knew better than anyone, there was a 99% chance he'd never leave again after this. Yet he held on to hope, a last-ditch effort. Leo nodded, saying nothing more. He wouldn't storm into the Zoldyck estate for Killua's freedom, first, because they weren't that close, second, because Zoldyck was terrifying. Especially Killua's sister, that monster. One tap of her wishing machine, and Leo might be dead. Not unless Leo gains unnatural powers. With that resolved, Leo left the arena. As for the demented Jaretta, the Hunter Association staff took him away. He might never recover. The Hunter test was officially over. Leo returned to his hotel room arranged by the association. Then, ding tilde. A familiar voice echoed from Leo's soul. Congratulations, host, on completing the professional hunter task in under a year. Reward, 10,000 chi. As the voice faded, warmth surged through Leo again. Chi filled his body faster than before. He didn't open his eyes, but silently felt the surging energy. Refine. He whispered in his mind. A massive chi wave erupted from his core. Although not as intense as when wielding Night Undying with bare hands, this was real chi, permanent. Whenever he used Night Undying, he felt hollow, as if floating rootlessly. Now, his chi was solid, grounded, and deeply satisfying. Gathering it inward, Leo checked his character panel. Host, Leo. Age, 26. Total psychic energy, 5,665 15,665. Psychic ability nature, special. Psychic abilities, Night Undying with bare hands, 1000, Shinra Tensei, 500, Getsuga Tensho Bankai, 10,000, Light Speed Kick, 3,000. Seeing his psychic energy hit 15,000, Leo couldn't help but grin brightly. Fantastic. Now I can use my ultimate moves many times. Though still far below the 700k 800k chi of the Ant King's Royal Guards. At least I won't have to ration my powers like I did against Hisoka. As Leo reviewed his abilities, confusion crept in. System, these sign and ultimate moves are too easy to access. For instance, using Getsuga Tensho Bankai with only 10,000 chi, I think it should require at least 100k. Chapter 61. Although Leo had doubts about this before, he thought it was a good thing and did not ask too much. But as the number of times he used the big move increased, and his understanding of the big move became more and more clear, Leo felt that it was a bit unreasonable. Especially as Leo developed his own Nen ability, he understood the principle of equivalent exchange more and more. The more powerful the Nen ability is, the more stringent the conditions for use. However, the conditions for using these big moves are so simple that Leo couldn't help but have a bad idea. Could it be that using big moves will shorten my lifespan? Leo couldn't help but think about things in a pessimistic direction. Only by consuming lifespan can Leo use these powerful big moves so easily. Soon, the system's voice sounded in the depths of Leo's soul. Ding tilde. Please rest assured, this system uses the universe as energy. As long as the universe is not destroyed, the system's energy will be inexhaustible. Every time the host uses a big move, the energy consumed is just the key to open the big move. The energy to maintain the big move has been paid by the system, and it will never harm the host. If the host thinks this is not good, the system can also cancel this right and let the host be fully responsible for the consumption of the big move. Hearing this, Leo blinked and immediately shouted. No, let's just leave it like this. It's fine to maintain the previous settings. After getting the system's explanation, Leo breathed a sigh of relief. As long as it doesn't consume his own life, no matter how he uses the big move in the future, he will have no worries. At the same time, the system's voice sounded again. It is detected that the host has completed Serial Task 1, and Serial Task 2 is now released. Please reach the 200th floor of the Sky Arena without using Nen. Mission success, reward 5,000 chi. Mission failure, no penalty. Seeing this task, Leo just glanced at it and didn't care. The reward is only 5,000 chi, which is not a small amount, but not a lot. There is no need to rush to complete it. What's more, with Leo's current strength, even if he doesn't use Nen, it is very easy to reach the 200th floor of the Sky Arena. His martial arts realm, with the help of the Knight's undead bare hands, is improving at a speed visible to the naked eye every day. Before becoming a master, there is almost no bottleneck. Physical strength is also increasing day by day under the nourishment of Nen. Don't look at the time since Leo awakened his Nen, it's only been more than 10 days. But if you just look at the size of his Qi, it has exceeded many ordinary people who have practiced for several years or even more than 10 years. Of course, in the eyes of many masters, 15,000 Qi is still the same as a novice. To be called a master of Nen, at least 50,000 Qi is required. For example, Knuckle. And those who have reached a Qi of more than 100,000 can be called top masters. For example, Hisoka and Krilo. As for the 3 royal guards of the Chimera Ant King, who have a Qi of 700,000 or 800,000, that is almost beyond the reach of humans. Of course, there are exceptions to everything. There may be some abnormalities among humans with unusually large Qi, such as Netero, who may have been able to match the royal guards in his heyday. But again, in Nen battles, it is not whoever has the most Qi who definitely wins. Combat experience, tactics, weapons, and Nen abilities are all important factors that affect the outcome. Thinking about these things, Leo began today's training journey. Every day of training, Leo could see his strength improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. If hard work alone could make you stronger, everyone would give 100% of their effort and perseverance. But unfortunately, no matter which world you're in, except for the gifted who can learn anything easily, most people can't see progress no matter how hard they try. Leo trained tirelessly. On the other side, in Gon's room, Gon had woken up, and Killua was happily telling him what had happened while he was unconscious. After he finished, Killua silently clenched his fists, lowered his head, and whispered, "Gon, I'm sorry. I can't keep our promise anymore. When I get the hunter license tomorrow, I'll go home with my brother Illumi. I'm afraid I'll never be able to come out again." Hearing this, Gon couldn't sit still. He wanted to jump up. But just as he raised his upper body, the burning pain all over his body made Gon's face twist. However, Gon ignored the injuries and still climbed up despite the pain. He held Killua's hands in both of his and stared into Killua's eyes, his gaze firm. "Killua, I don't care about the other things, and I don't understand them. I just want to ask you one question, are you willing to travel with me? If you're not, I'll never force you. But if you are, then even if you're imprisoned, I will do everything I can to save you. Because you're my best friend. Killua, tell me, are you willing?" Looking into Gon's burning, sincere eyes, Killua's nose stung, and there seemed to be a glimmer in his eyes. But Killua held it back. He gritted his teeth and lowered his head further. "Gon, it's useless. You don't know our Zoldyck family. Even though I really want to travel with you, it's just not possible. My family will never allow it." But Gon wasn't discouraged. Instead, his expression became more excited and determined. "It doesn't matter, as long as you want to go. If your family doesn't agree, I'll visit them myself. And I won't leave until they say yes." Killua opened his mouth, wanting to say, "You'll be beaten to death by my family if you do that." But just as he was about to say it, Killua paused. Yes. If Gon were an ordinary person, even with a hunter license, he'd be just a child the Zoldyck family could kill at will. But Gon isn't easy to kill. Behind him stands a terrifying powerhouse like Leo. At least in Killua's mind, Leo is strong enough to rival their Zoldyck family. If that's the case, as long as his family isn't completely insane, they won't kill Gon. Killing Gon would mean declaring war with Leo. Even the Zoldyck family wouldn't want that. Thinking of this, Killua smiled excitedly. He hugged Gon tightly in a big bear hug. He patted Gon on the back and laughed. "Gon, you're right, you really can come to our house. But before that, You'd better talk to your Uncle Leo to see if he supports you. If Leo doesn't support it, then you shouldn't come. Seeing Killua so happy, Gon knew he had succeeded in convincing him. Next, he needed to get his Uncle Leo's support and then convince Killua's family. Gon could already imagine himself and Killua on their journey together. As for failure? In Gon's world, failure is never an option. The next morning, Gon was full of energy and brought Killua to Leo. Looking at Gon's cheerful face, Leo couldn't help but admire him from the bottom of his heart. What a strong recovery ability. He was tortured for more than 3 hours yesterday. Although his bones weren't injured, his skin, flesh, and tendons were definitely seriously damaged. And now he's almost fully healed after just one night of rest. Is the freak's bloodline really that amazing? When Leo heard that Gon wanted to visit Killua's house to convince his family, Leo fell silent. Chapter 62. Leo was silent for a moment, then gently shook his head. Gon, it's not that I don't want you to go. It's just that the Zoldyck family, where Killua is from, is truly very dangerous. Even I can't guarantee that Killua's family will give me face. Considering the worst-case scenario, if they really don't and kill you outright, then even if I attack the Zoldyck family later, you will still be dead. Even so, do you still want to go? Hearing this, Gon nodded without hesitation. I'm going. I must go. Looking at Gon's determined face, Killua gritted his teeth, his heart growing more and more moved. But reason still made Killua say, Gon, forget it. You really don't have to take this risk for me. Killua. Killua was interrupted by Gon before he could finish. Gon placed his hands on Killua's shoulders and looked seriously and solemnly into his eyes. Killua, stop talking. I know you're doing this for my sake, but this is just my own willfulness. I just want to know that you want to travel with me. That's enough. I don't want to think about anything else. Gon. Looking at these two passionate friends, Leo sighed softly in his heart. It's good to be young. Friendship between men often only truly exists in childhood. As people grow older, that brotherhood weakens. In the adult world, there aren't so many emotions, only exchanges of interests. After sighing in his heart, Leo remained silent for a while, then said softly, Gon, since you've made your decision, then go. After all, you're a licensed hunter now, and it's time for you to become truly independent. Still, since I'm your Aunt Mito's man, I'll give the Zoldyck family a little warning. As for whether they'll listen, that depends on your luck. If you die, I'll avenge you. Hearing this, Gon smiled, nodded, and bowed to Leo. Uncle, Aunt Mito, I'm counting on you. I might not come back to Whale Island often in the future, so please take good care of Aunt Mito. Leo smiled and nodded. Don't worry. I'll take good care of Mito. After that, Leo went to the room where Illumi was. But before Leo arrived, he noticed that Illumi had already come to him. Looking at the long-haired, handsome man with a face full of shameless calm, Leo smiled softly. You've been eavesdropping, so you must know why I came. Illumi nodded silently and said calmly. For your sake, I can promise not to attack Gon. As for my family, I can only try my best to persuade them. After all, Killua is the treasure of our Zoldyck family, and this is the best age for him to learn Nen. Letting Killua leave our control at this time. I believe my family will most likely not agree. I don't want to hear that nonsense. I came to give a warning, to you, and to the entire Zoldyck family. Don't touch Gon. You can beat him, you can injure him. But if I find out you've crippled or killed Gon. In an instant, a terrifying aura burst from Leo's body. That evil pressure made everyone in the hotel feel overwhelming fear. Only the examiners capable of using Nen could withstand the aura exuded by Leo. At the same time, Leo raised a foot onto the window ledge. The long sword in his hand lifted high toward the sky. Crescent Sky Rush. Leo chuckled. In truth, whenever he fought others before, Leo didn't usually shout the names of his moves. It was too slow. By the time you shout, the enemy could cut you to pieces. But this time, Leo shouted on purpose, to build momentum. Boom tilde. As Leo slashed at the sky, a jet-black sword aura erupted, forming a massive energy blade hundreds of meters long. Wherever the sword energy passed, the sky split apart with a thunderous boom. Clouds were torn aside like curtains, as if the end of the world had arrived. The entire world was drowned in the roar of the sword's force. Seeing this, Illumi's lifeless eyes finally trembled. Though his face remained calm, his clenched fists revealed his fear. Turning around, Leo looked at Illumi with a smile. Illumi, tell me, can I flatten Kukuru Mountain, home of the Zoldyck family, with this sword? Illumi stared back with dark pupils and slowly nodded. Yes. This sword is enough to flatten our Zoldyck estate. That's good. I hope you understand what it means to be my enemy. Without saying more, Leo turned and left, leaving Illumi alone, still gazing at the split sea of clouds. One sword can flatten a mountain, one sword can split the sea. There are monsters like this in the world. After a long silence, Illumi took out his phone and dialed a number. Hello? What's the matter? A deep voice answered on the other end. Dad, there's something you need to know. At that moment, not only was Illumi shocked. Netero, Menki, Satots, and the other examiners were also stunned as they saw the clouds split and rolling apart. Menki couldn't help swallowing hard and murmured in a trembling voice. Is this Leo's true strength? That sword was many times stronger than the one he used on the uninhabited island. It split the clouds, its attack range was at least 2,000 or 3,000 meters. His tilde that sword really could level a mountain. However, Netero's eyes gleamed with blazing light. The aura from his body surged uncontrollably. It was honed, dense, and sharp. Just seeing it with the naked eye made it feel like getting pricked by needles. If an ordinary person approached Netero now, they'd be turned into a hedgehog by his nen alone. Leo. I can't wait to fight you. Netero smiled brightly. His white, neat teeth now appeared slightly ferocious. Any strong man seeks an opponent who can push him to the limit. That's true for both Hisoka and Netero. However, Netero had been unmatched for years, rarely fighting in recent decades. No one had been worthy of his challenge. Now, Netero was excited. Meanwhile, Menki was gazing at the rolling clouds, stars twinkling in her eyes. She touched her racing heart, a charming smile appearing on her face. Such an invincible man. And handsome, too. Isn't he the one I've been waiting for? A girl like Menki was always arrogant, never looking twice at ordinary people. But when a man appeared who could shatter her pride and completely outclass her, her heart was moved. Of course, Menki never considered whether Leo would like her. Perhaps, in the eyes of proud women like Menki, all men should like them. Truly proud and confident. Elsewhere, when Leo returned to his room, his ruddy face had turned pale, and sweat poured from his body. Who tilde? Leo collapsed onto the bed, panting heavily. Acting that cool in front of Illumi really almost killed me. The attack range of that Crescent Sky Rush had reached around 2,000 meters. You see, the base range of the Bankai version is only 500 meters. For every increase of 1,000 units of Nen, the range increases by 50 meters. In other words, Leo had used up the 3 free big moves for the day, plus 10,000 units of Nen. A total of 4 Crescent Sky Rushes. Only then could he produce a slash that could split mountains and seas. Of course, Leo kept 5,000 Nen in reserve. At that time, if Illumi still dared to attack, Leo would let him taste true fear. Wiping sweat from his brow, Leo smiled softly. This sword should be enough to keep the Zoldyck family from becoming my enemy. I don't believe they'd actually provoke me and risk total destruction. Chapter 63. Consuming 10,000 units of his nen at once was a huge burden for Leo. After all, he only had 15,000 units of nen now, and losing 2/3 of it in an instant made Leo's body feel completely drained, leaving him sore and weak all over. Without doing anything else, Leo just lay quietly on the bed. Sleep is always the best way for humans to restore their strength. At noon. Bang, bang, bang tilde. 3 regular knocks on the door caused the sleeping Leo to slightly open his eyes. Then, a male voice sounded from outside. "Mr. Leo, Chairman Netero invites you to the conference room on the first floor to attend the Hunter lecture. The rest have already been notified." Hearing this, Leo opened his drowsy eyes fully, and the tiredness disappeared in an instant. After a good rest, Ju also had excellent recovery abilities. Even though Leo had been exhausted in the morning to the point he didn't want to lift a finger, he had returned to full strength by midday. Opening the door, Leo nodded silently to the black-suited man standing guard. "Lead the way." "Yes, sir." Under his guidance, Leo entered the first-floor meeting room. The moment he walked in, Leo noticed he was the last to arrive. Gon and the others were already there. Clearly, this was Netero's deliberate arrangement. The protagonist always arrives last. Seeing Leo enter, everyone visibly tensed. Their expressions showed a mix of nervousness, fear, and admiration. Clearly, they already knew that the black sword energy that split the clouds this morning had come from Leo. Faced with a man powerful enough to shake the heavens, who wouldn't be anxious or awed? "Leo! You're here!" Gon waved enthusiastically and called out to him. Kurapika and Leorio also smiled in greeting, showing no fear or nervousness. After all, after spending time together, they already considered Leo a friend. And no matter how powerful a friend is, friendship doesn't change. Seeing Leo, Netero stroked his beard and smiled warmly. "Now that all qualified candidates who passed the Hunter exam are present, let me explain the rules, rights, and responsibilities of becoming a hunter." As Netero began speaking, everyone's attention shifted from Leo back to the chairman. "First of all, upon becoming a licensed hunter, you will receive your own hunter license." As he finished, a bean-faced man with features resembling a mung bean came in smiling, handing out hunter licenses to everyone. Leo looked at the license given to him and gently touched it. At first glance, it looked very plain, no different from a typical transportation card. However, focusing intently, one could sense that the hunter license radiated a powerful aura. This energy protected the license. It couldn't be damaged by brute force alone unless Nen was used to destroy it. Holding a license in hand, Netero continued. "This hunter license will be your new identification. With it, you can enter over 90% of restricted countries and 75% of restricted areas. You can use 99% of public facilities for free. If you enter business, you can enjoy financing from top-tier global companies. And if you're truly short on money, you can sell it. What you earn will be enough for 7 lifetimes. That's why countless people with malicious intent covet this license. If your hunter license is lost or stolen, it will not be reissued." Hearing this, Kurapika asked, "Chairman, does that mean anyone who holds a hunter license, regardless of ownership, can use all its privileges?" Netero smiled and nodded. "Exactly. Unless some conditions specifically require the license holder's identity, in most cases, possession equals access. As for why it's set up this way, well, I'm sure you've already guessed." Everyone nodded. A hunter makes a living through the hunt. If they can't even protect their own license, then they don't deserve to be a hunter. However, unfortunately, according to our statistics, about 1/5 of license holders lose theirs. So, your first test as a hunter is to protect your license. If you lose it, you won't be disqualified. But you will be looked down on by your peers. Please take note. Netero took a sip of tea to moisten his throat, then looked around with a sly grin. So, do any of you have questions? Everyone exchanged looks, eyes alight with curiosity. Kurapika eagerly asked the first question. Chairman, how can we learn powerful techniques like Leo and Hisaka? You mentioned that every professional hunter has the potential to learn such abilities. No one craved power more than Kurapika. To bring down the phantom troop, he would sacrifice everything. Everyone now stared at Netero, waiting for his answer. With a knowing smile, Netero nodded. Since you're all official hunters now, I'll tell you the truth. In this world, every human, no, every living creature, possesses an internal breath. In humans, this breath is usually blocked by closed pores. Some people may have partially opened pores, but the breath dissipates because the channels aren't fully opened. Once we open all the pores, however, we can control the breath within us. The training method for this breath, using it for offense or defense, is called Nen. Netero paused and looked at them. Now you understand. Nen exists in everyone. Anyone can learn to control it. But to prevent Nen from falling into the wrong hands, the top governments and the Hunter Association keep the method of opening Jinko, the aura nodes, strictly guarded. Still, many people out there manage to learn Nen either directly or indirectly. For example, Leo, Illumi, and Hisaka all learned Nen independently. He smiled again. But you're different. You're licensed hunters now. Soon, the Hunter Association will send professional instructors to help you open your aura nodes. That's one of the greatest benefits of being a hunter. Nen is profound, and most self-taught Nen users are very weak because they lack proper training. But you'll receive the best possible guidance. Follow the steps, and you'll definitely surpass the average Nen users out there. Chapter 64. Hearing this, Hanzo's desire to grow stronger intensified, and he couldn't help but shout excitedly. President, then do we have a chance to become as strong as Leo? Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned to Leo. Leo could clearly feel the envy and longing in their gazes. His strength had been deeply imprinted in their hearts. And now, at the thought of one day learning Nen and possibly gaining powers as formidable as Leo's, they couldn't help but tremble. It was a tremor of pure excitement. Netero smiled and stroked his beard. Don't worry, it's possible. As long as you work hard, everything is possible. As for how likely that is, well, it's probably like finding a needle in a haystack. Still, there's always hope. Netero believed that throughout human history, there must have been individuals who could rival Leo. For instance, in his prime, Netero was confident he was the strongest in the world. Even after seeing Leo's power, he still didn't believe he'd lose. Seeing everyone's enthusiasm, Netero continued. The mentor who will teach you Nen will contact you within the next 6 months. Until then, do whatever you want. When the time is right, you'll naturally meet your mentor. Of course, if possible, avoid disappearing into remote mountains or forests. They also have their own lives and can't always come find you. Everyone nodded to show their understanding. Finally, I hope you all achieve your dreams. As the 12th chairman of the Hunter Association, I hereby officially announce. The 9 of you are now hunters. Disband. Papa Patilda. With waves of applause, Netero smiled and walked away. But as he reached the door, he glanced back at Leo. That glance made Leo squint slightly and nod. Soon after Netero's departure, the newly minted hunters began preparing to leave. However, Leo stopped Ponzu, who was about to go. Ponzu, you haven't forgotten what you promised me, have you? Ponzu nodded seriously. I'll keep an eye on Hisaka's movements. But... She sighed helplessly. The world is so big, it's too hard to run into Hisaka. Even if my poison bee remembers his scent, if he's not nearby, it won't detect him. Leo nodded. That's why I hope you can develop an ability to track someone's Nen. There are many ways to track people using Nen. Silently, over long distances. You could use your poison bee for this. Once you learn Nen, you can develop such abilities more easily. Maybe you can even develop one that lets your bee lock directly onto Hisaka's location. Please, this is very important to me. Seeing Leo's sincere request, Ponzu blushed slightly, flustered. It's okay. I'm really happy to help you. Looking at Ponzu's sweet and flustered face, Leo said nothing more. He just exchanged contact info with her and went his separate way. Watching Leo's back as he left, Ponzu bit her lip softly. Leo. When Leo returned to Gon, he found that Killua had already disappeared. Clearly, Illumi had taken him away. Leo, we've decided to go to Killua's house first. What about you? Do you want to come with us? Gon looked up at Leo, eyes bright with hope and expectation. To Gon, if Leo came with them, taking Killua back would be nearly guaranteed. The Zoldyck family wouldn't dare oppose them. After all, after witnessing Leo's power, it was hard to believe anyone in the world could defeat him. In their eyes, Leo was the embodiment of invincibility. Looking at Kurapika and Leorio beside Gon, Leo smiled and shook his head. No, I won't go. If I go, the Zoldyck family might think I'm provoking them. That would make things very awkward. Besides, I've already warned Illumi and shaken the Zoldyck family. As long as they don't want to be my enemies, they shouldn't cause trouble for you. I see. Gon sighed, disappointed, but quickly brightened and nodded cheerfully. Then, Leo, let's meet again soon. Next time, I'll have learned Nen and surprise you. Kurapika and Leorio also nodded with a smile. That's right, Leo. Even though you're super strong now, we'll catch up eventually. And when we do, we hope to spar with you, seriously, no holding back. Seeing the confidence in their faces, Leo didn't want to dampen their spirits. He smiled and reached out his hand. Then I'll look forward to seeing how much you grow. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio each placed their hands over Leo's. See you next time. The four smiled at one another, parting ways with laughter. Watching Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio walk away, Leo let out a long breath. But there was a trace of melancholy in his heart. After nearly 20 days together, it would be a lie to say there was no bond. Especially after the sea storm and the countless tests they endured together. Unless one is completely cold-hearted, bonds inevitably form with companions. While not deep enough to die for, parting still brings some sadness. Closing his eyes, Leo stood silently for a long time. When he opened them again, they were calm and clear. He turned to the black-suited man standing nearby and said softly, "Lead the way." The man said nothing, only nodded, then led the way. Soon, Leo arrived on the hotel rooftop. There, the Hunter Association's airship still waited. But this time, only Netero stood in front of the boarding ramp. "You're here." "I'm here." Netero stared seriously at Leo, his tone grave. "It seems you already know why I asked to meet." Leo smiled, spreading his hands, and chuckled lightly. "I can't help it. The aura coming off you is so sharp. So sharp I can read your thoughts at a glance. Wow tilde." Netero stroked his beard and laughed. "I'm already 120 years old. I used to think my mind had reached its peak, that I couldn't be stirred anymore. But now, even at this age, when I meet a monster like you, I still get excited. So, how about a sparring match?" Feeling Netero's growing aura, Leo shook his head. "No, Chairman, I don't want to fight you right now." Chapter 65. "Ah? You don't want to fight me?" Netero looked at Leo in surprise, the aura emanating from his body suddenly freezing. He had imagined battling Leo. He had imagined being defeated by Leo, and he had also imagined defeating Leo. But he had never imagined that Leo wouldn't want to fight him. After all, there is an undeniable attraction between the strong. The strong always seek duels with other strong individuals, this is an eternal rule. Who would have thought that Leo would refuse so casually? What was he thinking? Seeing Netero's dazed expression, Leo chuckled and shook his head. No, it's not that I don't want to spar with you, Chairman. I just don't want to fight you now. Netero frowned, confused. What's the difference? There's a big difference. Leo looked at Netero seriously. Chairman, I know that you were once universally recognized as the strongest Nen user in the world. But that was in your prime. Now, you're old. Physically and mentally, you're far from your peak. Hearing this, Netero sighed with a hint of melancholy. I see. You look down on me, you think I'm no longer worthy of being your opponent. Leo quickly shook his head. Chairman, I never said that. Don't put words in my mouth. It's just that I'd prefer to spar with you when you're closer to your prime. That way, the fight would be more meaningful. Netero stared deeply at Leo, then suddenly burst into laughter. You're right. I got ahead of myself. When I saw that sword slash tear through the sky, I got so excited I forgot everything else. All I could think about was fighting you. But I forgot, as a warrior, while the desire to win is important, respect for your opponent matters even more. Netero took a deep breath, regaining his composure. 7 days. His deep, steady voice rang out. Give me 7 days. I will do everything I can to get myself back in shape. Only then will our duel truly mean something. Leo smiled and nodded. All right. But I want the battle to take place near Whale Island. 3,000 meters east of Whale Island, there's a sand island above sea level. It's barren, just rocks and sand, no vegetation, no residents. That will be our battlefield. Whale Island. Netero narrowed his eyes, murmuring. He knew that island well, even from more than 10 years ago. Because Jing freaks came from Whale Island. All right. 7 days from now, we fight there. See you then. See you then. Watching Netero step aboard the airship and fly away. Leo slowly unclenched his fist. 7 days. The thought of fighting Netero in 7 days ignited a burning fighting spirit in Leo. He was once the strongest man in the world. Any true martial artist would dream of facing Netero in battle. Even though Netero is past his prime, and defeating him now doesn't mean being the strongest in the world. This duel isn't about victory or defeat. Winning would bring joy. Losing would mean Leo simply isn't strong enough yet, and he would keep working. The process itself is what matters most. Leo believed he could learn a great deal from dueling Netero. After all, he had only been training Nen for a little over 20 days. With such a short time, it's questionable whether he had even stepped through the threshold of Nen mastery. In terms of control, Leo was still just a novice. Next, let's return to Whale Island. Thinking of Mito waiting for him at home, Leo's heart throbbed. In this rootless world, Mito was the only harbor in Leo's heart. It had taken 2 days to travel from Whale Island to the Hunter exam venue. But the return trip would take only 1 day. This time, Leo would fly to the airport nearest Whale Island. Then take a boat home. And this time, the boat wasn't a wooden sailing ship, but a modern steam freighter. In terms of comfort and speed, it was vastly superior. With the convenience of a hunter license, Leo didn't need to wait. As long as a plane or ship was available, he could board for free, and he'd be treated like first class. This was the power of being a hunter. In this world, hunters held extremely high status. Even if you were a king, you could hire a hunter, but you must never insult one. Any insult to a hunter would be condemned and boycotted by all nations. In extreme cases, even a monarch might lose their throne. Of course, that only applied to smaller nations. In larger countries, the response might be limited to condemnation, public apologies, or compensation. But for hunters to enjoy such high status, they also had serious obligations. For example, They must hunt down criminals who threaten national security and battle invasive threats like chimera ants from the Dark Continent. Hunters in the association are expected to eliminate such dangers. No matter how perilous, it is their duty. With great power comes great responsibility. January 23rd, early morning. On a small hillside on Whale Island. The salty sea breeze blew, making the girl's white dress flutter. Her orange-red hair was swept into her eyes by the wind, and Mito gently brushed it back behind her ear. Though her loose clothes hid her slender figure, they couldn't conceal the warm, peaceful aura she gave off. No matter who saw Mito for the first time, they would feel a deep sense of calm. Her gentle temperament made everyone feel the warmth of family. Mito gazed into the vast sea in the distance. It was a path all ships had to pass when heading toward Whale Island. Any ship heading their way would be spotted by her. It's been 19 days. Leo, gone. Are you both okay? Mito's beautiful eyes reddened slightly, her nose tingling. She bit her lip, trying not to cry. She was afraid that her beloved Leo, and the boy she had raised since childhood, gone, would vanish like Jian, never to return. Yet Mito still held on to hope. She believed in Leo, believed he would come back. So, for the past 20 days, she had stood here daily, waiting for her loved one's return. Even if each day ended in disappointment. Suddenly, two strong arms wrapped tightly around her waist from behind. Mito was about to scream, but when she inhaled the familiar scent, she melted in his embrace. Lowering his head, the man gently kissed her lips, their eyes meeting. "I'm sorry I'm late." No matter when you come back, it's always the right time. End quick break hunters. Glad you're enjoying the fanfic if you're watching it this far in. Anyway, did you know, Kilowa's yo-yo weighs 50 kilograms. Each yo-yo weighs 50 kilograms, which is 110 pounds. That's heavier than most dumbbells. Also chapter 66 just doesn't exist. So, chapter 67. January 23rd. Half a month. After saying this, Leo fell silent for a moment and hugged Mito more tightly. "I'll stay on Whale Island for half a month before I leave." Leo didn't explain why he had to leave, because when Mito had agreed to let Leo take the hunter exam and become a hunter, she already knew that Leo wouldn't stay on Whale Island forever. Like Gon and Jing, he would one day leave to chase his dreams. This is the final path of every hunter. Yeah. Mito hummed softly and said nothing more, just lying quietly in Leo's arms, listening to the sound of his heartbeat. Tears welled in Mito's eyes, but she held them back, not letting a single drop fall. She knew that if she cried, Leo would definitely try to comfort her and might even extend his stay. That was something Mito didn't want. She wanted the man she loved to fulfill his dream. Even if it meant she would be left alone for a long time again. The room was quiet. But Leo eventually broke the silence. "I'll try to come back once every 3 months." No. Mito was about to refute him, but Leo stopped her with a kiss. Staring into Mito's orange eyes, Leo gently wiped away her tears. "Don't argue. I'm not gone, and I'm definitely not Jing. They can choose to never return, but I can't. Because you are my pillar. You are my dream, too. Being with you is part of my dream." 1. Leo silently added that final word in his heart. Leo. Overwhelmed by Leo's fierce love, Mito's eyes became hazy, and Leo felt a familiar pain in his waist. But he didn't back down, he faced it head-on. A man can't afford to say no. In the days that followed, Leo lived in both happiness and pain. The happy part was that Mito was more loving and gentle than ever, completely devoted. When Leo trained, Mito would sit nearby, resting her cheek on her hand, watching him with admiration in her eyes. When Leo rested, Mito prepared fruit and fed it to him herself. The painful part? Mito's stamina was far too strong. Every day, she practically wore Leo out. Gentle as water, passionate as fire. Most men couldn't withstand such a combination. A few days later. January 27, 1999, day 28, early morning ding tilde. When the familiar system prompt rang in his soul, Leo knew it was time for the weekly sign-in. Congratulations to the host for signing in successfully for a week. Reward, a new big move, Sage Art, would release, True Thousand Hands. As the system voice faded, a familiar warm current surged into Leo's body. At the same time, the method for activating Sage Art would release, True Thousand Hands was transmitted directly into Leo's mind. Feeling the shift within himself, Leo opened his status panel. Name, Leo. Age, 26. Total Nen, 15,483. 17,243. Nen. Type, Specialist. Nen. Techniques. Knight's Undying Bare Hands, 1000. Shinra Tensei, 500. Getsuga Tensho, Bankai version, 10,000. Light Speed Kick, 3000. Sage Art, would release, True Thousand Hands, 50,000. Sage Art, would release, True Thousand Hands, an ultimate technique originating from Hashirama Senju of the Naruto universe. Consumes 50,000 Nen upon activation. By forming a hand seal, the user instantly enters Sage mode. And summons a massive Guanyin statue with countless colossal arms. Under the user's control, the statue rains down a storm of giant fists to crush enemies. Each punch is strong enough to destroy mountains or meteorites. Note, while using this technique, the user may combine it with Wood Release, Wood Dragon technique and Wooden Golem technique. For every additional 10,000 Nen used, the statue's size and number of fists increase by 10%. After reviewing his status panel, Leo stood there in shock. Then he took a deep breath. His tilde so strong. Too strong. I actually got the True Thousand Hands. Leo had watched Naruto before, and he knew how terrifying Wood Release was. Once summoned, the True Thousand Hands could easily blot out the sun. The Nine Tails was massive. But any single hand of the statue could grab the Nine Tails like a toy. Thousands of giant fists crashing down together could change the shape of the entire continent. Mountains shattered. Rivers rerouted. Lands torn apart. All of that could be done with ease. Gulp. Leo swallowed hard. Receiving such a devastating move left him stunned and speechless. At the very least, Leo knew. He was now truly invincible in the human world. If anyone dared challenge him again, he'd just unleash the True Thousand Hands. No matter who it was, they'd be turned to dust. The Zoldyck family thinks they're powerful? Hey! With a single activation, the entire Kukuru Mountain would be leveled. But soon, Leo calmed down. He decided that unless absolutely necessary, this technique would be sealed away, just like Getsuga Tensho, Bankai version. The reason? Simple, it was like wielding a nuclear bomb. After all, Leo was still a human being. And even if the True Thousand Hands matched the power of a nuclear weapon, if Leo himself were hit by a real nuke, even with the statue's protection, he'd still die. A nuclear explosion generates temperatures in the tens of millions of degrees. And though the statue is massive, it's still made of wood. It would burn instantly, and worse, it might even trap the heat inside. If Leo were inside when it exploded, he'd be vaporized on the spot. Even if, by some miracle, he survived the heat, the radiation would eventually kill him. Just look at the Ant King. He evolved to a level far beyond human comprehension, yet he still died from radiation and virus poisoning. Having seen the Ant King's fate, Leo wasn't foolish enough to show off recklessly. If he revealed too much, the world's top leaders might panic, and nuke him preemptively. Unless one day, Leo truly becomes immortal, unaffected by nukes, diseases, or anything else. Only then would he be free to act without limits. For now, I'll have to change the location of the duel with Netero. It couldn't be anywhere near civilization. It needed to be somewhere isolated, a forbidden zone or secret realm, where humans wouldn't dare tread. Chapter 68. The world of Hunter x Hunter is not the same as Earth from a previous life. Although there are networks and signals here, there are no satellites. The entire human world exists within a relatively small lake of civilization. Any satellite launched will eventually vanish. It cannot orbit the human world like on a typical planet. Therefore, as long as Leo enters a location inaccessible to humans, even if he unleashes true thousand hands and levels mountains, rivers, or lakes, the human world will detect nothing unusual. That's right, Leo planned to use true thousand hands during his duel with Netero. For no other reason than to test its strength. It would be a waste to let such a powerful move, earned through sign-in, just sit unused. After reviewing the description of Sage Art, would release, True Thousand Hands, Leo checked his total Nen. 17,000 wasn't much, it was actually rather low. He couldn't even activate True Thousand Hands once. However, for regular use, it was enough to deploy techniques like Knight's Undying Bare Hands, Shinra Tensei, and Light Speed Kick conservatively. Closing his personal panel, Leo looked at Mito, still asleep in his arms, kissed her gently on the forehead, and then drifted off to sleep. As for whether Mito was heavy and whether Leo could sleep. To be honest, before awakening his Nen abilities, Leo and Mito would have definitely slept apart. Every man with a girlfriend understands how uncomfortable it is when she sleeps with her head on your arm. Those who know, know. Those who don't, well, it's a pity. No words were spoken that night. Early morning. High above the clouds. A Hunter Association airship drifted slowly through the sky. Inside, Netero sat cross-legged in the training room. From his body emanated an intense, terrifying aura. If that aura were released into a city, it would surely incite mass panic among the population. Even without being able to sense Nen, people within several miles, perhaps even dozens, would instinctively feel a threat of death. In the monitoring room, the bean-faced man watched Netero, who had been meditating without moving for 6 straight days, and couldn't help but worry. "Chairman. Come on." The bean-faced man had served Netero for a long time, but he had never seen him prepare so seriously for a single battle. Still, he had seen the crescent sky slash that Leo had unleashed. That level of power absolutely warranted Netero going all out. Luckily, Leo wasn't an enemy, this was only a duel. There was a good chance nothing dangerous would happen. Otherwise, the bean-faced man would have privately alerted the 12 Zodiacs to assist the chairman. Suddenly, he felt his pocket vibrate. Pulling out the buzzing phone, he glanced at the caller ID, confused. "Mr. Leo?" Soon, Leo's voice came through the receiver. This voice. "You're the bean-faced guy. Please inform the chairman that I want to change the location of our duel. Ideally, it should be somewhere uninhabited, like the Trick Tower, where the first Hunter exam took place. You know, my Nen ability is quite loud. If I fight at full power, the noise will cause panic. I'd rather avoid that." Hearing this, the bean-faced man recalled the slash that split the clouds, and nodded silently. "I understand. I can handle that directly. I'll arrange for someone to escort you from Whale Island to a restricted zone. Luckily, since you are now a licensed hunter, you won't need a lengthy approval process. Otherwise, regular civilians would have to apply at least a year in advance to enter such areas." Leo acknowledged him with a polite thanks and ended the call. The bean-faced man didn't bother notifying Netero. Instead, he directly contacted the restricted zone supervisor and ordered the airship to adjust course. A simple venue change like this was well within his responsibilities. In fact, the bean-faced man handled most of Netero's affairs. Netero only needed to oversee the general direction of the association, others took care of the details. especially since Netero had promoted Periston, one of the 12 zodiacs, to vice-chairman. Periston had begun seizing power through various tactics. Though Periston often used the Hunter Association's resources for personal gain, he did help relieve Netero of many duties. All in all, the bean-faced man thought Periston was very competent. A 3-star hunter at a young age, he had status, ability, and a respectable public image. But the bean-faced man still didn't like him. That smiling, courteous face. It was all an act. Periston was a demon in human skin. The bean-faced man could never understand why Netero, despite opposition from many, insisted on making Periston the vice-chairman. Watching Netero refine his nen on the monitor, the bean-faced man muttered softly, "Chairman, you're old. You've made your share of foolish decisions." Elsewhere. The Zoldyck Estate. Republic of Piaotia, Dentora Region, Kookaroo Mountain. For reference, it lies just north of Whale Island. From the Final Hunter Exam Hotel to Kookaroo Mountain, it takes about 3 days by airship. If you include train and bus transfers, it takes at least 4 days. At this moment, Gon and his group were at the foot of Kookaroo Mountain, wearing weighted iron suits, pants, and shoes, sweat streaming down their faces as they ran. At the top of the trail stood a massive iron gate, tens of meters tall. The gate was composed of 7 nested doors, like a Matryoshka doll. Seeing the gate, Gon took a deep breath, removed all the weights from his body, pressed his palms against the gate, and pushed with all his might. Despite using every ounce of strength, the gate didn't budge. Creak. Still, with Gon straining at his limit, a faint creak echoed from the hinges. Gon's eyes lit up, but he immediately collapsed to his knees, panting hard. Yet his face glowed with joy. 3 days. Just 3 days, and I can move the gate even a little. It won't be long now, Killua. I'll see you soon. Chapter 69. Although the Zoldyck family is a clan of assassins, they openly publicize the location of their estate. The entire Kookaroo Mountain belongs to the Zoldyck family. Anyone wishing to enter must pass through the outermost trial gate. The trial gate consists of 7 nested doors. The stronger the person, the more doors they can open. But each additional door doubles the required strength. For example, the first doors left and right halves weigh 2 tons each, a total of 4 tons. To open the second door, you need 8 tons. The third requires 16. To open all 7 doors, a combined force of 256 tons is needed. This refers to both arms combined. For one arm, it would require 128 tons. But unfortunately, in the world of Hunter x Hunter, brute strength alone isn't enough. The most important weapon is Nen. Just like in the original story, when Killua was in the Heavens Arena, he could open the third gate, meaning he had at least 8 tons of strength in one arm. A single punch could destroy a truck. And yet, he couldn't even knock out Zushi, a beginner in Nen. Later battles against Nen users showed even more clearly that strength alone is limited. Of course, that doesn't mean strength is useless. In professions like assassination, the stronger the better. Assassins often use Zetsu to suppress their aura, making themselves undetectable. When well concealed, using raw strength and assassination skills is often more effective than overt Nen use. At the trial gate, after Gon tested it, both Kurapika and Leorio also tried to push it open. Like Gon, they could only get a faint creak from the door. They were still far from opening it. Yet none of them showed discouragement. On the contrary, they were more determined. If they could make progress in just 3 days, then in a week, they could push it even further. Sooner or later, they'd open it completely. Kurapika and Leorio were highly motivated by this training, which visibly increased their physical strength. This was why they persisted. As for why Gon and the others didn't just climb the wall into the Zoldyck estate, well, it wasn't impossible. But entering through the trial gate would classify them as guests or potential clients. They wouldn't be treated as enemies. If they tried to climb the wall or fly in by airship, it would be seen as an outright provocation. And anyone who provokes the Zoldyck family dies. While Gon and his friends trained hard, Leo had already moved forward. After informing the bean-faced man of the venue change, the Hunter Association dispatched a dedicated airship to Whale Island that same day. After telling Mito he would return as soon as possible, Leo boarded and departed into the unknown. Watching the airship rise, soar through the clouds, and disappear from sight, Mito sighed softly and turned back home. On the airship, Leo sat on a sofa, sipping tea, and glanced up at the black-suited man standing before him. "What's the destination of this flight?" The man answered respectfully. "Mr. Leo, we're headed for the Kfeni grasslands in the ancient Ganyu Kingdom. This is a highly restricted zone accessible only to certified hunters like yourself. Ordinary civilians must pay massive fees and pass strict evaluations. And even then, they may wait years before gaining access." Hearing this, Leo nodded silently, indicating he understood. The ancient Ganyu Kingdom was where Leo had taken the hunter exam. It was one of the V5 nations. And given its proximity to Whale Island, it made sense for Netero to choose a highly restricted zone there as the dual location. Leo had researched the continents and nations of this world through the internet. The world was divided into 6 major continents. Although the map looked different from Earth, the continental layout was oddly familiar. Each continent housed multiple countries. Among them, 5 nations were global powerhouses. Together, they formed a governing body known as the V5. The V5 effectively ruled the world, and even the Hunter Association operated under their directives. For instance, during the Chimera Ant crisis in the original story, V5 ordered the Hunter Association to eliminate all threats. Should the association fail or refuse, V5 had the power to punish, or even dissolve, it. To Leo, this kind of centralized power wasn't surprising. In fact, it felt familiar. They were just like the Big 5 powers in his previous life. The Hunter Association's prestige and privileges largely stemmed from V5's support. Without it, the association would lose influence and quickly collapse. Knowing this, Leo had no interest in trying to control the association, or V5. There was no need. As long as he kept growing stronger, strong enough to be revered and feared, power and wealth would naturally follow. There was no point wasting time on bureaucratic games. What interested Leo far more was the mention of the highly restricted zone he was headed to. Thanks to his hunter license, his access level online was near maximum. He could uncover 90% of the world's classified information. He learned that highly restricted zones and the Dark Continent were essentially different tiers of the same idea. Restricted zones were still within the bounds of the known human world. But the Dark Continent lay beyond the map. Each restricted zone or area within the Dark Continent contained remnants of lost civilizations. Hunters could explore these ruins and uncover ancient history. At the same time, both types of areas were home to exotic, unknown beasts and plants. Hunters could study these creatures to enrich the world's biodiversity. In short, most hunters chose to explore restricted zones. It was the best way to earn merit and rise in hunter ranking. Of course, to rank up faster, one could enter the Dark Continent. Most restricted zones were no longer as dangerous. After centuries of exploration, much of their contents were catalogued. But the Dark Continent, that was where the real adventure awaited. It was a paradise only for the most daring and capable of hunters. Chapter 70. The world of Hunter x Hunter is not the same as Earth in a past life. Though there's signal and a network, there are no satellites. The entire human world is like a small, contained lake. Any satellite launched would eventually vanish. It cannot orbit like on a normal planet. Therefore, as long as Leo enters an area inaccessible to humans, such as a highly restricted zone, he can use true thousand hands to level mountains, rivers, or lakes without disturbing the rest of the world. That's exactly what Leo plans to do when he duels Netero, test the true thousand hands in complete secrecy. It would be a waste to unlock such a move and never use it. After reviewing the details of Sage Art, would release, True Thousand Hands, Leo checked his total Nen, 17,000, which isn't enough to use the move even once. Still, he can still use techniques such as Knight's Undying Bare Hands, Shinra Tensei, and Light Speed Kick sparingly. He closed his status panel, looked at Mito, still sleeping in his arms, kissed her gently on the forehead, and fell asleep. If this were before he awakened Nen, Leo and Mito might have slept separately, but now, it felt okay. No words were spoken that night. Early morning, above the clouds. A Hunter Association airship drifted across the sky. Inside, Netero was seated cross-legged in the training room. A terrifying aura radiated from him, strong enough to cause panic if unleashed over a city. In the monitoring room, the bean-faced attendant stared at Netero, who had meditated for 6 days straight, unable to suppress his concern. "Chairman. Come on," he thought. This was the most intense preparation he ever witnessed. Still, he'd seen Leo's crescent sky slash, whose power justified everything. Suddenly his pocket buzzed. Pulling out his phone, he saw the caller ID, Mr. Leo. The message came through. Leo requested another venue change, somewhere in the uncharted, highly restricted zone of the Dark Continent. His Nen would be too loud in public. The attendant called it in and didn't alert Netero, instead redirecting the airship to the new coordinates. Elsewhere, Fanny Grasslands, ancient Ganyu Kingdom. The airship landed on the vast, open plain. The grasslands stretched out like an endless African savanna dotted with clusters of trees. Soon, another vessel descended. Netero, wearing a simple t-shirt and shorts, strode out. The sharp aura he still carried dissipated step by step. By the time he reached Leo, it was that of a calm old man. "I've kept you waiting, Leo," he said, touching his beard and gesturing toward the windswept grasslands. Leo smiled and asked, "Chairman, ready? If not, we can wait a few more days." Netero dismissed the staff, then met his gaze, calm as the sea, but currents surging beneath. "I'm the elder here, are you ready?" Leo beamed, and Netero sensed both confidence and a flicker of fear rising from him. "7 days ago, you didn't stand a chance against me," Leo said softly. "Now, you're destined to lose." Stepping back 10 meters, he summoned a simple sword in his hand. Instantly, his aura surged. Netero stood casually, arms at his sides, but Leo felt the pressure of a master's presence. He inhaled deeply. "Chairman, do you know how many abilities I've got?" Netero raised an eyebrow. "From your performance in the Hunter exam, I'd say 3, one that repels, one that blasts with kicks, and your black sword aura that split the skies. Do you have hidden abilities?" Leo nodded gently. "Actually, I have 5. To show respect, I'll reveal them all, but if you can't last until I show my strongest one, then you can only blame yourself for being weak." Netero frowned. "Smart boy. You're insinuating I'm weak, eh? Stop boasting, fight." Leo grinned. "Coming." In a flash, Leo lunged forward, right foot digging into the ground, sword aimed at Netero's head. Netero responded with equal speed, his hands pressed together. He released a single punch, no Nen technique, just a physical blow. It struck Leo like a speeding train. He was sent flying, blood trailing behind him in a blur. A sonic boom marked the punch. Netero's fist had broken the sound barrier, and Leo was sent flying as fast. Still, Leo was holding a shield, not an offensive weapon, and the shield held firm. Netero's punch, though faster than sound, left merely a deep imprint, not shattered it. "Your sword attack was camouflage," Leo called out mid-flight. I turned it into a shield, Grandmaster level shield technique. He crashed down hard, sliding dozens of meters across the grassland and kicking up turf. Ahem. Spitting out blood, Leo raised his head to Netero, smiling. Chairman, you see my ability clearly now? Chapter 71. Hearing this, Netero frowned slightly. Although the battle between him and Leo was brief, Netero did sense something unusual. He looked at Leo, who stood up from the ground in confusion, and said in a deep voice. What's the matter with you? As a sword master, you are also a shield master? Although many old masters can branch out into other martial arts and reach a master level in them. That's usually only because they've reached the peak of their original discipline, with little room for progress or improvement left. That's why they choose to practice other martial arts. But you're different. You're so young and already a sword master. It's impossible that you'd abandon that path to pursue shield mastery. Leo smiled and said nothing, but the shield in his hand transformed into a red-tasseled spear. This was the result of Leo's efforts over the past few days. It took him nearly 7 days to materialize a weapon like a sword for the first time. Later, thanks to the experience of materializing cold weapons, he was able to draw inferences and reduce the time needed to manifest other weapons. Now, in just 1 day, Leo could materialize a new cold weapon. As he spun the spear gracefully, his figure flashed again, and the red-tasseled spear stabbed toward Netero's chest. The spear rotated, amplifying the thrust's power. Seeing this, Netero was even more bewildered. Because Leo's spear technique was also perfect, almost flawless. The spear's fluidity, sharpness, and subtle gentleness unmistakably bore the mark of a master. Swordsmanship, shield skills, spear skills. All mastered? This thought flashed through Netero's mind as he brought his hands together again. His speed broke the limits of human perception, even Leo couldn't see it clearly. The next moment, Netero punched again. Boom tilde. The punch collided directly with the tip of Leo's spear. Under the force of Netero's surging fist, Leo was blown away once more. This time, the red-tasseled spear shattered into countless fragments. Leo, sticking to the same routine, materialized a shield in midair. Relying on its cushioning, he gouged dozens of meters of scratches across the ground. Ahem tilde. Leo coughed a few times and licked the blood from the corner of his mouth. Tasting the blood, his face remained ruddy. He stood up without issue, smiling at Netero. You truly are the strongest in the world. Even with martial arts at the Grandmaster level, I can't even see your attacks. However, though Netero had knocked Leo away twice, both attacks struck the weapon Leo had materialized. Because of this, even though Leo suffered some recoil and spat out blood, he wasn't truly injured. Netero frowned even more, staring at Leo for a long time. Now, Leo had no weapons in hand. Therefore, Netero could easily detect Leo's posture and breathing. It was only characteristic of someone with some martial arts proficiency, not a true master. Netero thought for a long time, then, though hesitant, spoke with great confidence. If I'm not mistaken, you're actually not a master of swordsmanship, shield skills, or spear techniques. You're not even a martial arts master. Your master-level skill is your Nen ability. As long as you hold the corresponding weapon, you become a master in that field. This is your Nen ability, master of all weapons. Leo raised his eyebrows, but his expression remained calm. He nodded silently. Since you've guessed it, Chairman, I won't hide it. Knights never die unarmed, that's one of my Nen abilities. As you said, as long as I hold the corresponding weapon, I gain mastery in its discipline. Hearing Leo's confirmation, Netero took a deep breath and exclaimed. What an incredible ability! Possessing countless master-level martial arts. As long as your opponent's strength doesn't completely overwhelm you. Even if they're stronger, you can counter them with the appropriate martial art. Astonishing. Developing such a Nen ability, truly astonishing. Thank you for the praise. Leo raised his right hand toward Netero. Then, next, please accept this move, Chairman. Shinra Tensei. Without further words, Leo shouted softly. An invisible repulsive force instantly spread from him toward Netero. The force was incredibly fast. The grassland was once again flattened. However, it was clear that Shinra Tensei was still too slow for Netero. Even though it was nearly instantaneous, the repulsive force's speed was such that most would be struck without realizing it. But Netero was several times faster than the speed of sound. Before the repulsive force reached him, Netero had already clasped his hands in prayer. This time, Netero did not hold back. Behind him, a golden guanyin statue tens of meters tall appeared. From its back, dozens of arms stretched outward, each with a unique palm configuration. Hyakushiki Cannon. As Netero raised his hand and extended it forward, one of the statue's arms did the same. Boom tilde. In an instant, the fierce repulsive force collided with the palm strike of the Hyakushiki Cannon. The resulting shockwave was like a meteorite impact. For hundreds of meters, the wind howled and tore across the grassland. Thanks to the protection of Shinra Tensei. Even if Netero blocked or overpowered the repulsive force, as long as he didn't strike Leo directly, Leo would remain unharmed. Gazing at the massive Hyakushiki cannon behind Netero, Leo's eyes gleamed as he laughed excitedly. Hyakushiki Cannon. The world's strongest Nen ability. Chairman, brace yourself. As he spoke, Leo raised his foot, a blazing light forming around it. Seeing this, Netero instantly recognized that Leo was about to unleash his laser-like Nen kick. Without hesitation, Netero clasped his hands and swung his palm toward Leo. The Hyakushiki cannon followed through, slamming into Leo. But instead of being knocked away, as Netero expected, Leo transformed into a cluster of light particles. Netero's eyes widened in disbelief. What kind of ability is this? You can even turn your body into light? Chapter 72. In Netero's opinion, Leo's ability to turn aura into lasers is a combination of the emission and transformation types. Although it is extremely difficult to convert aura into lasers, it is not theoretically impossible. However, turning the entire body into light is virtually impossible. Because doing so requires two fundamental conditions. First, one must transform aura into light. This means cultivating the transformation category to an extremely advanced level. Second, one must alter the body at the atomic level, enabling a flesh and blood form to convert into light. This requires mastery of the manipulation category to its absolute limit. Achieving even one of these feats is almost impossible. Cultivating both to the extreme simultaneously? Even more so. After all, among the 6 Nen categories, manipulation and transformation are opposites. If one can utilize transformation to 100%, manipulation can only reach a maximum of 40%. And vice versa. So, for Leo to have clearly cultivated transformation to the level of turning aura into light, and simultaneously cultivated manipulation to the point of controlling his body at the atomic level, that should be impossible. This is one of the core laws of Nen. An unbreakable truth. Every powerful Nen ability must come with a major limitation. There are no exceptions. Unless it's achieved through conditions and vows. But Netero knew it was possible that Leo had accomplished these two seemingly impossible miracles through such a condition and vow, turning his flesh into light. However, the cost would have to be enormous. So great that Leo might lose all Nen abilities, or even his life, after a single use. But what about Leo? He just stood there, completely intact. Neither his aura nor his body showed any signs of damage. This defied the laws of Nen usage. How did you do it? Seeing Netaro's stunned expression, Leo smiled and raised his leg, preparing to launch another light-speed kick. But before Leo could finish charging, Netaro's Hyakushiki cannon once again struck, turning him into a mass of photons. When Leo reformed, he sighed in frustration. Sure enough, this move is completely useless against you. Charging up the light-speed kick takes time. Netaro's Hyakushiki cannon was so fast it struck before Leo could complete his charge, dispersing him into photons and naturally interrupting the process. Seeing that Leo didn't answer his question, Netaro realized he didn't intend to reveal the true secret behind his Nen ability. But then again, that's how Nen works. The fewer people know your ability, the better. Once exposed, if everyone in the world knows what your ability is, then someone will inevitably develop a Nen power to counter it. The reason Netaro's Hyakushiki cannon is so strong and nearly invincible. It's not because the technique itself is unbeatable, but because Netaro is overwhelmingly powerful. It's not that hard to find the weakness of a Nen ability, but finding the weakness of the person wielding it, that's the real challenge. Leo no longer chose to use the light-speed kick. Instead, he pointed the sword in his hand at Netaro with a smile. Chairman, are you ready for the next sword? If you can't block it, don't force it. Hearing this, Netaro's eyes lit up. He cast aside all earlier doubts, his aged but ruddy face becoming even more animated. Come on. I've been waiting for this sword for a long time. Ultimately, the duel between Leo and Netaro was just a competition, not a fight to the death. That's why Leo could unleash his strongest techniques without hesitation. And Netaro, every time he repelled Leo, never followed up to press the advantage. It was more like they were showcasing their abilities, allowing each other to understand the extent of their power. This was a competition. Both would stop short, never aiming to take the other's life. But if it were a life or death battle, one of them would die. In that scenario, Leo wouldn't say a word, he'd instantly unleash would release, true several thousand hands to end it. After all, his opponent was Netaro. If Leo hesitated, he wouldn't even get the chance to activate true several thousand hands, he'd be turned into paste by Netaro's Hyakushiki cannon. As Leo raised the sword in his hand, a pitch-black sword aura instantly cloaked the blade. At the same time, a violent surge of energy swept across several miles. Wild beasts and monsters that had been hidden in the grasslands sensed the destructive pressure and fled in terror. Sensing Leo's tremendous aura, Netaro laughed heartily, and his own aura surged to match. This time, Netaro did not interrupt Leo's energy buildup. Whether it's the lightspeed kick or the crescent moon sky strike, both require some time to charge. For many Nen users, that time isn't enough for a proper counterattack. At most, they can defend or dodge. But for Netaro, it's more than enough to land hundreds of strikes. If he wanted to, Netaro could shatter Leo's aura instantly and knock him away, or even pulp him, before he could unleash Crescent Moon Sky Strike. But Netaro didn't do that. He wanted to experience Leo's world-shattering sword aura. He would only be satisfied countering Leo's strongest move head-on. Seeing Netaro offer no interference, Leo laughed and used two free ultimate move activations at once to amplify the Crescent Moon Sky Strike. Chairman, taste my final Crescent Moon Sky Strike. As Leo spoke, he slashed fiercely at Netaro. Boom tilde. A massive wave of pitch-black sword energy, tens of meters long, tore across the sky, air, and even space itself as it slashed toward Netaro at blinding speed. Facing this overwhelming force, Netaro clasped his hands together in prayer. This time, the Hyakushiki cannon behind him grew clearer than ever. Hyakushiki cannon, 99th palm. As Netaro prepared. In a flash, the Hyakushiki cannon moved. Hundreds of arms lashed forward simultaneously. Countless palm strikes, like a torrential storm, collided with the incoming crescent moon sky strike. Boom tilde. A massive shockwave, like a nuclear explosion, erupted between Leo and Netero. The earth split apart inch by inch. Within a 1-kilometer radius, the entire grassland was flattened by the blast. The ground roared, the air howled, and the explosion was loud enough to rupture any ordinary person's ears. Chapter 73. When the shockwave and mushroom cloud caused by the collision between crescent moon sky strike and high Kushiki cannon slowly dissipated, two figures soon emerged on the grassland that had been completely leveled. Leo and Netero faced each other from a distance of more than 10 meters. However, Leo's breathing remained steady, without the slightest fluctuation. Netero, on the other hand, was drenched in sweat and gasping for air. The Hyakushiki cannon behind him was now tattered. Most of its hundreds of arms had vanished without a trace, and the massive Guanyin figure, tens of meters tall, was heavily damaged. After a moment, the shattered Hyakushiki cannon dissipated completely, and Netero was visibly exhausted, leaning on his knees with both hands to prevent himself from collapsing. Just now, in order to block Leo's crescent moon sky strike, Netero had launched a relentless, full-power assault. In truth, if it had only been a matter of constant striking, Netero wouldn't have been this exhausted. As long as the Hyakushiki cannon remained intact, even if Netero threw hundreds or thousands of palms, the energy consumption would have stayed within tolerable limits. However, the Bankai-level crescent moon sky strike was too powerful. Especially since Leo had stacked two ultimate techniques, doubling the sword's destructive force. Each time the sword energy struck, another arm of the Hyakushiki cannon would be severed. The sharp, unstoppable blade aura could slice through anything in its path. To restore each broken arm, Netero had to burn massive amounts of aura. The cost of regenerating one arm equaled that of launching dozens of palm strikes. Netero had lost count of how many palms he'd thrown, or how many times he'd repaired the Hyakushiki cannon. But that didn't matter. What mattered was that he blocked it. He had stopped Leo's sword, powerful enough to cleave mountains and slice through clouds. That was the outcome Netero had hoped for. He wanted to meet Leo's destructive sword energy head-on, and shatter it. Only then would he feel satisfied. Of course, this was assuming it was a friendly spar. If this had been a life-or-death duel, Netero would never have been so foolish as to face Leo's crescent moon sky strike head-on. He would have either killed Leo before the technique could be activated, or dodged it entirely. Netero took a deep breath, forced back his fatigue, straightened up, and looked at Leo with a grin. Well? My Hyakushiki cannon is decent, right? Though its raw power is far inferior to your sword energy, quantity makes up for it. I can still block your slash. Seeing Netero's smug expression, Leo nodded with genuine admiration. Chairman, your Hyakushiki cannon really is too powerful. In terms of speed, it's simply unmatched. If you hadn't chosen to take on my crescent moon sky strike directly, I probably wouldn't even have had a chance to attack. You could have just beaten me to death. Netero took a few deep breaths and began to recover. Hearing Leo's sincere praise, he beamed with pride and couldn't help but exclaim. So that move is called Crescent Moon Sky Strike? Yeah, the shape of the sword aura really does resemble a crescent moon. And the power, it's truly one of a kind. I can guarantee, in terms of sheer destructive force, your Crescent Moon Sky Strike is unparalleled in the world. No one can match it. Although the two were complementing each other, there was no exaggeration, they were speaking the truth. In terms of attack speed, Netero's Hyakushiki cannon far surpassed Leo. In terms of attack power, Leo's Crescent Moon Sky Strike exceeded Netero. But as the old saying goes, speed is the one thing that can't be countered. In a true life-or-death battle, Leo would be the one to fall. After exchanging praise, Netero's eyes sharpened, and he looked at Leo with a solemn expression. Leo, You said you had 5 major Nen abilities. You've already shown me 4. Don't hold back, use the final one. Even though I know I might not be able to block it. I won't be satisfied unless I witness your full strength. Hearing this, Leo took a deep breath. His eyes grew sharper. Chairman. Before we began, I promised I'd let you experience all of my Nen abilities. That was my way of showing you respect. Since you were even able to withstand my crescent moon sky strike, I won't hold back anymore. But first, could I ask that the Hunter Association's airship withdraw from the area entirely? Netero was briefly surprised, but then quickly understood what Leo meant. Leo's final Nen ability must be even more powerful than the crescent moon sky strike. Even that move was one Netero had chosen to conceal from the world. He didn't want the public to know how powerful Leo was. Then, Leo's final Nen technique must be unimaginably destructive. So much so that Leo couldn't even trust his own allies to witness it. With that thought, Netero hesitated. He thought deeply, then finally shook his head. Forget it. Leo, your last Nen ability must be incredibly strong, even more so than Crescent Moon Sky Strike, right? Seeing Leo nod, Netero's suspicions were confirmed, and he sighed helplessly. In that case, I can't in good conscience force you to use such a move just to satisfy my curiosity. Even if I order my people to leave the area, I can't guarantee that your Nen technique won't be exposed. Netero still wanted to protect Leo. More precisely, he wanted to protect humanity. Just the Crescent Moon Sky Strike alone was powerful enough to raise alarms among the top leaders of every nation. If Leo had an even more terrifying ability, Netero was certain that once the V5 learned about it, they would try to either kill or control Leo at all costs. And in resisting that, Leo would inevitably cause unimaginable destruction. Hearing this, Leo fell silent. He had to admit, Netero was right. While there were no satellites in the world of Hunter x Hunter, there was no guarantee they weren't being watched in this remote area. There could very well be a Nen ability capable of reconstructing everything that happened during their fight. Unless Leo could tank a nuclear bomb and survive the explosion, he wouldn't be in a position to ignore the world's rules. Thinking that, Leo sighed. Chairman. You're right. It seems our match must end here. No. That's not right. Actually. There is a way. Suddenly, Netero's eyes lit up, as if a new idea had struck him. His expression became animated. In the human world, it's too dangerous to use overly powerful Nen abilities. Then, what if you weren't in the human world? Hearing that, Leo was stunned. Then a realization struck him. He frowned slightly and asked in confusion. Chairman. Are you suggesting I go to the Dark Continent? Chapter 74. The Dark Continent lies beyond the borders of the human world map. It can be said that as long as a location isn't on the known human world map, it belongs to the Dark Continent. However, generally speaking, the areas hunters refer to as the Dark Continent often exclude the actual Dark Continent proper. There are many land masses beyond the human world map, each larger than the human world itself. These vast regions are commonly called the Dark Continent. However, even these territories, despite their danger and scale, pale in comparison to the true Dark Continent. Although powers like the V5 have sent expeditions to explore these areas, their control over them is negligible at best. If Leo were to unleash true several thousand hands in one of these Dark Continent zones, V5 would never detect any disturbance. Contemplating this, Leo asked in confusion. Chairman, what's the point of telling me all this? Any Dark Continent territory is far from the human world. Just a round trip would take months. It's too much trouble. Netero stroked his beard and chuckled. Relax. I have a way to get us there instantly. Then, Netero pulled out his phone and made a call. A cold voice responded on the other end. "Chairman, can you please stop calling me so often? I'm really not interested in being your personal transport service." Ignoring the complaint, Netero spoke as if to himself. "Nav. Come to the Hunter Association branch in the ancient Ganyu Kingdom. I'm heading to the Dark Continent." Hearing that phrase, Nav paused, then sighed heavily. "Chairman. Why are you going to such a monster-infested place again? I've told you, I'll only handle the transport. Don't expect me to hang around. I still want to live a few more years." Don't worry. I've got someone else to accompany me this time. Just relax." After hanging up, Netero messaged the airship floating in the clouds to descend, then turned to Leo with a bright smile. "Leo, I bet you haven't visited the Dark Continent yet. Perfect. I'll take you for a proper tour. Those places are quite the experience. In the Dark Continent, monsters roam freely, and man-eating plants grow in abundance. It's a dangerous place, but nowhere near as perilous as the true Dark Continent beyond." Leo opened his mouth, initially wanting to say he'd only planned to fight Netero, show off a little, and then return to Whale Island. But the idea of exploring the Dark Continent, witnessing strange wonders, sparked a strong curiosity in him. Thinking of this, Leo sighed slightly. "Sorry, Mito, looks like I'll be coming back a bit later." With that thought, Leo followed Netero onto the airship with growing excitement. He called Mito from on board. She understood Leo well and didn't scold him. Instead, she gently reminded him to stay safe. That only made Leo feel more guilty. Watching Leo hang up the phone, Netero sat on a floor mat, sipping tea and sighing. "Leo, once you chose to become a hunter, you were destined to be apart from your family. It doesn't mean you're not a good man, or a good husband. It just means that, in pursuit of dreams, separation is inevitable. The balance will never be perfect. Just like Nen, no ability is flawless. Every power comes with a drawback." At this point, Netero paused, gazing at Leo with a smile. "Of course. That doesn't seem to apply to you. In my 120 years, I've never seen anyone as monstrous as you. Even Jian couldn't develop a Nen ability as perfect as yours. It's like it costs you nothing. Maybe, someday, you will balance family and ambition. Maybe you'll live with both career and happiness." Leo smiled back at Netero. "Thanks for the blessing, Chairman." As for whether he could balance career and family, Leo had no doubt. First of all, Mito was gentle, kind, generous, and deeply considerate. As long as Leo never betrayed her, she would silently support his dreams. She was the type of woman who gave without asking for anything in return. Perhaps the only reward Mito sought was for Leo to visit her once in a while. Secondly, Leo believed he would eventually sign in a teleportation ability. The world had too many space-based ultimate skills. Like Flying Thunder God or Kamui in Naruto. Or the Door fruit from One Piece. Even the spatial teleportation abilities from a certain magical index. There were tons of powerful moves like these. As long as Leo could sign one, he'd be able to explore the world by day and return to Whale Island by night to spend time with Mito. Truly, life would be perfect. Seeing Leo's calm and content expression, Netero narrowed his eyes slightly. It looks like he has figured out how to balance family and ambition. Netero sighed with a tinge of envy. His own thoughts drifted back to his own past. Decades ago, he too had a family, had love. But for the sake of the Hunter Association, he had to sever those ties, keeping them hidden. He hadn't seen them in decades. As the chairman, Netero couldn't afford to have vulnerabilities. If the wrong people learned that the world's strongest man had a wife and child, they'd become targets of revenge. If someone kidnapped them and used them as leverage, Would Netero submit to blackmail? Or watch them die? Half a day passed. When the airship landed at the Hunter Association branch in the capital of the ancient Ganyu Kingdom, a man in a sharp suit with glossy hair and glasses boarded. Nav adjusted his glasses with a finger and eyed Netero and Leo sharply. He was clearly an elite, the arrogance and confidence radiated off him. Nav glanced at Leo, then calmly said to Netero, "Chairman, let me formally reiterate. I am not your personal transport system. If you keep abusing your authority for personal favors, I will report you to the Hunter Association's review committee." Netero waved his hand and laughed. "Go ahead. File the report. In the end, I'm still the one who approves it." Seeing Netero's shameless smile, Nav sighed. "Fine, fine. You win. After all, you are the chairman." Then, Nav squatted down, channeling Nen into his fingers, and drew a circle on the ground. Moments later, a dark portal appeared on the airship floor. Chapter 75. January 29th. Staring at the black hole Nav created in the floor of the airship, Leo couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy. Nav's ability was called four-dimensional apartment. As long as entrance and exit points were set at designated locations in advance, he could use them to access a private space he created. By moving between doors connected to those points inside the room, Nav could freely travel between distant locations, no matter how far apart. This was the kind of ability Leo very much wanted to acquire. Moreover, it wasn't just for travel. Nav could generate entrance points on his palms, emit aura from both hands to envelop the opponent, and then bring his hands together. During this process, the aura formed a Nen space that would sever anything caught inside. In theory, it was a terrifying attack. No matter how durable the body, be it even the Chimera Ant King, against spatial severance, they'd be sliced like tofu. But the technique was overly complicated. You had to first surround the enemy with aura, and then successfully clasp your hands to activate the cut. True masters used the simplest and most direct methods to take lives. The more complex the technique, the more vulnerabilities it had in real combat. After arranging the portals, Nav stood up and looked at Leo with sharp, distrusting eyes. "You're Leo. A new hunter, licensed just this year. I don't know why the chairman's taking you to the Dark Continent, but let me warn you, never reveal my ability to anyone. If you do, even if you flee to the ends of the earth, I'll come for you." Hearing this, Leo laughed and casually raised his hands. Okay. Whatever you say." Netero wanted to laugh too, but restrained himself. Leo's information had been sealed off. Even Vice Chairman Periston wouldn't be able to access it without Netero's approval. As a result, the official record described Leo only as a newly licensed hunter with unknown strength. Menki and the others had been strictly ordered to stay silent. Anyone who knew Leo's true power would never dare to spread it, unless they had a death wish. Seeing Leo's dismissive attitude, Nav's glare deepened. But with Netero present, and without knowing Leo's true strength, Nav suppressed his irritation, leapt forward, and entered the black portal. Netero nodded at Leo, then jumped in as well. Leo followed. As soon as Leo jumped, the dark hole vanished completely, leaving no trace. What met Leo's eyes was a square, snow-white room. There were 4 doors, one on each wall. Without saying a word, Nav unlocked one of the doors and turned to look at Leo and Netero. "Chairman, the portal to the Dark Continent is open. As agreed, I'll return to open it again in 3 days. Good luck." Netero stroked his beard and laughed. "Nav, you're still such a coward. It's just the Dark Continent, nothing to worry about. Come along, get some real experience, it'll be good for you." Nav didn't flinch. He remained motionless and expressionless. Seeing Nav unmoved, Netero shook his head and dropped the matter. but he couldn't help feeling pity for him. Despite his elite appearance, Nav was deeply timid. Netero had once brought him to the Dark Continent. But Nav had panicked. Though the monsters weren't especially strong, only numerous. With Nav's strength, he could have easily escaped, even if he couldn't win. Instead, he crumbled, fleeing in terror the moment things turned against him. Maybe that reflected his Nen ability, one suited more for running and hiding than direct combat. Bullies of the weak, cowards before the strong, that's how Netero viewed people like Nav. With that thought, Netero and Leo stepped through the final portal, leaving the four-dimensional apartment. As soon as they were gone, Nav slammed the door shut, exhaled deeply, and collapsed to the ground. He hugged his knees and trembled against the wall, face pale. The Dark Continent filled him with unrelenting terror. He couldn't even fathom returning there. When Leo stepped through the portal, a gust of wind and the roar of waves hit his face. For a moment, he thought he'd arrived in another paradise. But what met his eyes was a scene that would terrify any normal person. In the sky, flocks of bizarre birds shrieked loudly. Each bird was nearly human-sized. Out at sea, monster-like plesiosaurs emerged from the water. Dozens of crimson eyes stared directly at Leo and Netero, who had appeared atop coastal rocks. Each plesiosaur opened a mouth filled with razor-sharp fangs and roared in unison. Thankfully, they were sea beasts, they didn't come ashore to attack. Still, Leo took a deep breath. The air was heavy with the scent of dense forest. Ahead of them, the shoreline gave way to an impenetrable jungle. From deep within, the roars of unseen monsters echoed. Even from this distance, Leo could smell blood. So this is the Dark Continent? It's completely different from the human world. Leo murmured. Sure, the human world had seas, forests, and monsters too. But this place had a different atmosphere. Back in the den of fraudsters, Leo hadn't felt danger. Here, it was different. He was genuinely on edge. Netero looked out at the vast forest and spoke slowly. The Beast Continent. That's what I named this place. Its size is about twice the total area of the human world. Because the average temperature stays around 30 degrees Celsius year-round, it's perfect for beast-type creatures. As a result, there are far more of them than there are humans. Then he turned to grin at Leo. So? Leo, interested in stirring up some chaos here?